to order.
Mr. Chair, April 22nd.
April 22nd, I'm sorry, what did I say? And I'd like to start with invocation. Mr. Don Jennings, I know I'm catching you, or Don, I'm sorry, I know I'm catching you cold. Would you be willing to give us an invocation this evening? Thank you.
Good evening, good evening. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity that you've given us that we might gather to deliberate the business of the county. We ask now that you would bless our planning commissioners, bless those citizens who are here in attendance, and we ask that you would bless our community as a whole, that we might be able to enjoy the wonderful quality of life that we have become accustomed to. We ask now that you would be within their hearts and minds as they deliberate, that they might make good decisions on behalf of our community. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you're willing, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do a roll call, please.
Bobby Bowser. Thomas DeStefano.
Here.
Brian Carroll.
Here.
James Ford.
Here.
Jennifer Boykin. Here. George Ross.
Here.
Raynard Gibbs. Matthew Smith.
Here.
Keith Johnson.
Here.
Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any actions on request to withdraw or table?
There are no items this evening.
All right, thank you.
Not till later.
And approval of the agenda. A motion for approving or any comments on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as it stands.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is citizens' comments. Bobby, do you read for this one?
I don't have it in front of me. I don't typically read that as the chair, but citizens can speak on any topic that is not scheduled for public hearing this evening.
All right, and limitations, let's remind the public is 4 minutes, correct?
It is 4 minutes for citizen comments and any topic that does not include those scheduled for public hearing.
Okay. And citizens' comments at this time? Is there anybody have any items to discuss that are not on the agenda for this evening? Okay, hearing none.
Point of clarification. If something is adjacent to something that's on the agenda for public hearing, is that permitted?
Are you speaking in opposition to something that, or in favor of something that's for public hearing?
Not in opposition of the zoning that is listed, however, what has been, okay.
But she can come up and start, and if it's
Yeah, let's-
improper, we can,
Citizens' comments is open, ma'am. I think if it crosses into an item that is on the public hearing, we'll stop
we'll
you.
let you know.
Okay. Hey guys, what is that? Great. Okay. Hello, how are you all?
Just state your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Angela Gibson. I'm a member of the Ashby Way community at 22520 Britt Way, Carrollton, Virginia, 22310. So, thank you all for having us here this evening. While there is a public hearing agenda item noted for the Bridgepoint Commons conditional zoning request, and I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone here, but the sentiment seems to be that it's not that the zoning for that planned area is of the problem or concern. It is the mixed information that we are receiving for Ashby Way community for there to be a possible cut-through off of Britt Way, which is currently a cul-de-sac in a residential, absolutely non-commercial community.
Mr. Jones, this crosses in the public hearing, I believe.
It does.
I'm gonna state that that's on the public hearing for this evening. Those are great comments, but we need to wait until we hear that line with respect to the public hearing.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I am not clear at what point we are permitted to comment, because we were under the impression after calling Islewood County Planning that this would be our time to comment.
Yeah, so, good comment. I'm going to address that for the sake so that there's no confusion in the room. With respect to the items that are in the public hearing, we'll hear the application by the applicant with detailed explanation of that, and then I'll open it up for public hearing, in which case citizens will have 4 minutes to comment. If they-
Actually, during that will be 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. 5 minutes to comment. For groups that represent 10 or more, they'll be authorized up to 10 minutes, I believe. Is that the rule?
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
6 minutes per, I'm sorry, point of
Yeah.
clarification.
One person will be authorized up to 5 minutes. A group of 10 or more will have 6 minutes to make a public statement.
So an individual representing a group of 10 or more.
And those 10 have to be here.
How do you count the 10?
They stand up.
But like
And
based
they-
on,
If you
Topic?
represent, no, on each public hearing item,
sure.
a person, after the staff presents the report and the applicant presents their presentation, it is open for citizen comments, and anyone can get up and speak in favor of or in opposition to the project. They have 5 minutes to speak. If that person represents a group of 10 or more people, they get extended time. However, the rest of the group forfeits their ability to speak.
Understood. Okay. Thank
And
you.
it's not on a topic, it's on that application.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification. I am very happy to be the guinea pig this evening.
Yeah. All right, any other citizen comments this evening that are not associated with a topic that's going to be a public hearing? Okay, hearing none, I will close the citizen comment portion of this. And
And, Mr. Chairman, I'm afraid I misspoke. The group of 10 or more applies to the Board of Supervisors' public hearings. That is not in the board's bylaws. It is 5 minutes per speaker.
thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Jones. Okay, moving on to the public hearings this evening. The first one is a application CSUP TAC 21, TAC 5.
C sub 25-1 Riverside Elevated Water Storage Tank Conditional Use Permit, request height exception request. Application CSUP 25-1 of Alawite County Public Utilities applicant and Ben's Church Properties property owner for a conditional use permit to construct a major utility consisting of a water tower 30 feet above the prescribed height limit on approximately 1.3 acres located at 19488 Casper Circle on tax map number 320106AA in the Rural Agricultural Conservation Zoning District.
Thank you, Amanda. Good evening, Commissioners. Mr. Johnson, welcome aboard. I promise we didn't put you by yourself intentionally. The first public hearing application this evening is a conditional use permit request specific to a height exception, which I'll discuss more in detail in a few minutes. The tax map ID, as Amanda mentioned, is 32010688, and the specific address point is located at 19488 Casper Circle. The current zoning for the parcel is Rural Agricultural Conservation, and it's located in Election District Number 3. Again, I forgot. My name is Caleb Kitchen with the Planning and Zoning staff here at the county. A little bit of background about the parcel. Historically, this parcel and adjacent parcels to the west have been used for either access to or resource extraction and borrow pit activity. There was a portion of this parcel, the previous existence of this parcel, that was rezoned for the hospital complex in 2008 to general commercial and then taken off with the boundary line adjustment. So the remainder portion that it is today is RAC zoning. As y'all are aware, Public Utilities has received this EPA grant to construct a water tower in support of the hospital complex and the neighboring Ben's Grant subdivision. There is currently a subdivision application in our office under review to separate 1.3 acres of the 5.1 acres total to be specific for the water tower. In our review, we saw that the Department of Historic Resources has a site that's been identified on this parcel. It was surveyed in 1972, and they found, it was noted in the report as containing points and pottery fragments from the woodland period, but its eligibility for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places was undetermined at that time. The proposed water tower looks to be standing at 165 feet in height. This is the site. The portion, the 1.3 acre parcel looking to be cut out is pretty much right where the word site is, right in this area. This is the current zoning map of this property in the area. You can see the RAC zoning. You can see Red Oaks Mobile Home Park there as a planned development mobile home park, and then you have the general commercial there in red, and some urban residential over there along King James Court. This is the lot going on in this neck of the woods. This is the future land use map derived from the comprehensive plan. As you can see, the future designation for this parcel is mixed use. You have some civic uses across the way with the cemetery and the St. Luke's property, and then business and employment right across the street. This is pulled from the applicants submitted their preliminary site plan a step too early. They needed to go through this process first in the subdivision process, but this is pulled from their preliminary site plan. It's just an example of what the layout of the property will look like. That's not the tower, that's the asphalt going up to the tower. And then this is showing what the tower will look like with the bulb at the top. This is a view coming out of that private lane at Casper Circle. The water tower will kind of be over here on the left, right where the hospital's at. This is a view from behind the hospital, right near the entrance of the Benz Grant subdivision, and again, it's kind of over here. This is a view directly across at the gas station there on the corner, looking inward towards the property at the intersection of 258 and Route 10. This was provided by Public Utilities. This is a view from standing in the Benz Church parking lot there, looking across the street. And this line is the approximate kind of view shed analysis of how tall that tower will be at its placement on the site. As you all are aware, the zoning ordinance here in the county stipulates that the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors has to consider certain criteria before granting a conditional use permit. Some of them are that they will not, the use will not be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, and general welfare, that it provides adequate utilities, water in this case, sewer, septic system, that is not contrary to the goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan, things of that nature. Furthermore, the ordinance states that the board can impose conditions to make a particular land use more appropriate for the neighborhood that it's going into. Those conditions can be anything from what you see up here. It's not an exclusive list, though, so if we need to come back to this, we certainly will. So 99% of height exception requests, you will find them on your new business section of your agenda. They do not require a public hearing. This is that 1%. And I'll try and explain how we get there here in a second. Section 4, 2006A, which talks about the bulk regulations in the RAC zoning district, establishes that 35-foot height limit in that zoning district. You go down a little more in the ordinance and you get to our supplementary regulation section in 5-2000 D1, and it provides for exceptions under specific circumstances to go above the underlying zoning district's height limitation. In this case, it does include water towers. It includes other things like church steeples or cupolas, things like that. It allows you to go above the prescribed height limit by 100 feet, and it stipulates that any additional height requires the conditional use permit. So that's why we're here with this unique situation. So the applicant is proposing a 165-foot tower, which would be 35 feet or 30 feet above the 135-foot by right limit. Looking at the comprehensive plan, again, the future land use designation is mixed use. Appropriate uses can be anything from single-family residences, apartment-style residences, making sure, we have preservation of natural features and non-residential uses, some civic uses such as churches, schools, and libraries, and some planned office and commercial uses as well. We sent this out for agency review. Fire rescue had no concerns. The county museum, Jennifer England over there, did note the DHR resource that we identified on the property. And our environmental planner took a look at it as well, saying most of the soil is that the borrow pits, sandy soil that you usually see, where the original soil has been removed, buried, or replaced, and she has recommended a soil report to be submitted. Taking all this into consideration, staff's analysis, the application, the strengths are, the application is consistent with the comp plan and can meet ordinance requirements, and the proposed use will certainly serve as a critical public service need with the construction of the hospital complex there. The weakness we identified is that, the height of this water tower may have negative visual impacts to the adjacent St. Luke's Historic Overlay District in the area and the historic resources identified within there, such as the church, even the cemetery, maybe from some angles. So staff recommends approval of the application with two conditions. One, that the county museum staff conduct a preliminary shovel testing of the site to determine if there is a potential need for further archaeological studies. Jennifer England from the museum has offered her and her staff to go out there and do that for us in this particular case because it's a county project. And secondly, that there be a submission of a soil report determining the suitability of the soils for the big water tower to go on top of it. So the applicant is here. We have Uva and David from Public Utilities, and I will be around at the public hearing, should you have any questions.
I'd like to ask the applicant if he had any items to discuss.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Uva Weindell. I am the Director of the Department of Utility Services. I also have David Forsythe as the Assistant Director of the department. So if there's questions, we can respond to those appropriately. Just to kind of give you a basic idea where we are with this. When the Ben Grant properties were being developed, part of that was a realization that water supply and fire protection were going to be needed. So the applicant at the time, Ben's Grant Properties, provided the agreement to go ahead and provide us the property. They also included a proffer statement that allowed us to have about $1.6 million on top of that. So besides the environmental grant that we got from EPA, we also have a 1.6 proffer that helps us. Based on the development of the growth and the way most of the tanks are designed, we tried to go ahead and develop for the future. So we don't have a whole bunch of things popping up everywhere we have. So the original preliminary engineering report actually indicated we should have a 1.2 million gallon tank. That was considered operationally not sustainable at this point in time. Again, they're looking at projections back to 2040, 2050. Operation-wise, when we're dealing with a tank that size, you need constant turnover to keep the water fresh, so to speak. So our concern was that we would not be able to do that. We don't want to waste water for no particular reason. So the alternative was to go ahead with a 750,000 gallon tank. That will meet the needs of the domestic areas and the growth we are seeing at this present time, plus some of the future. It also, which is really the substantial part of why we needed the tank, is the fire protection needs for the hospital. Again, we follow what the Department of Health gives us as recommendations for flow. We also have to follow the National Fire Protection Agency's recommendations and requirements. Based on those requirements, the need for a sprinkler system in the hospital indicated that we needed to provide enough pressure for those systems to actually activate and work functionally. That is the reason why it went to 165 feet. We did take a look at a few other areas within the property. In fact, one of the original areas was back into the northeast corner Unfortunately, there were already cell towers there, so under FAA, we were not allowed to put anything in that portion of the property. We did look at a few other closer to Ben's Grant Road, a couple of places. This was the most logical place. It's a little bit on the higher side, so in lieu of having a 200 and somewhat foot tank, this became the better alternative. Based also on the fact that we have geological surveys, work done, and we can provide that information, that's already part of the project. There was a construction debris refuse area there. A tank of this size, if you're familiar with the Hardy School Elementary on Old Stage Road, it's going to be a similar type tank, except it's going to be 750,000 versus 500,000. The tank itself will sit on piles. So there'll be 40 to 50 foot piles in an array to hold and support that tank. So really, what we're looking at is a major construction project, obviously. The tank itself has been put out to bid, but we've not obviously received anything for that yet. The other scenario that we are looking at is that since the hospital may be in operation by the early 2026 period, there's no way a tank's going to be built within that time period. So we will have to provide a temporary fire pump or some other mechanism to assist the hospital in case of an emergency. So that is still being planned on, and we'll deal with the hospital directly to determine the best method to deal with that. But typically, it would be a fire pump of some kind. That would just be a temporary scenario until the tank itself is prepared. I can answer any questions you may have. I can get you into the structural details, but that's only my interest.
How does this tank compare to the one on Brewer's Neck in height and capacity?
It's higher, and it will be a little bit of a bigger tank. Not as big as that one, but because of the differentials of elevations, we are actually going to propose a two-zone system, because the one that you're referring to does not have the capacity to meet, because of elevation, the fire requirements for the hospital. That's the reason why we have to do this.
Was it okay with it when I open up to public comments, and then we'll come back for questions? All right. Thank you. All right. So now I'm going to open the floor for public comments on the issue. Private citizens are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker. Anybody in the audience would like to talk about this issue? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. And board questions or comments? I had two. One, the height, I'm thinking that creates like a pressure fluid height, and if the power were to go off, the pressure would be needed for firefighting capacity without the need of an electrical pump. Is that,
Correct.
am I thinking about this correctly?
That's correct.
Okay.
Part of the project will be to put a booster pump station somewhere on the main road area. That has not yet been determined. And that is basically just for filling purposes.
Okay. And then two, the access road to it, could you give some discussion on what maintenance would be required for the water tank, and then the access to it, how you,
At this point in time, the travel way that's in front of that property, that parcel that we're trying to split out, is what the old trucks used to use for the sand operations. So it's a relatively good compacted area. We may need at some point to put some stone down just to kind of stabilize it if we find that there's any soft areas. But the access basically would be through the main entrance around the hospital to the tank. You will have staff typically at least once or twice a week visit the tank, make sure everything's done. We do use electronic data control systems so that we can monitor what's going on at the tank, and we don't have to have somebody physically there constantly looking at it. But just basic maintenance and make sure that security and everything else is properly taken care of. We just have a routine of doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Has the hospital given any comment, and does it affect their placement of where their helipad is behind the hospital?
No, in fact, we've been working with the hospital directly, and they are the ones who develop the requirements for their sprinkler systems and things like that. So we've already explained to them what's going on, and they're okay with that. They don't see that as an issue. Now, we will have a light on the tank because it's of excess of 100 feet any which way, just like any cell tower or anything like that, but that'll be it.
And you said that the temporary fix for the situation, about 2 years?
We're hoping to have it completed within a year, year and a half, but unfortunately with today's economy and the way things are going, materials that used to take 30, 60 days are now taking 120 plus. So it's really up to the suppliers of materials to see how long this goes. We are allowing for a 500-day construction period, but that may change again. A legit excuse for a change order of time would be if the deliveries are held up for some reasons. But we're hoping to actually have it done at least in the substantial completion stage, probably just prior to the spring of next year, or within the same time period as we're dealing with right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. What's the pleasure, commission?
I'll make a motion for approval with the staff's recommendation of the museum staff conducting a shovel test and the submission of a soil report.
Second.
All right, maybe give a motion a second. Roll call, please.
Jennifer Boykin,
Yes.
Thomas Stefano,
Yes.
James Ford,
Yes.
George Charles,
Yes.
Matthew Smith,
Yes.
Keith Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Carroll.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the second item. Samantha?
Application REZN 2411 of Charles Brown Jr. and Properties LLC and Main Development LLC, property owners and Allied Properties LLC applicant to change the zoning district from conditional urban residential and conditional general commercial to conditional planned development mixed use of approximately 43 acres with tax map numbers 3401050 and 3401050D, located at 15020 Carrollton Boulevard, for 147 attached single-family homes and 1.5 acres of commercial development.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. My name is Amy Ring. I'm the county's Community Development Director. I am presenting the second public hearing tonight, which is the rezoning request for Bridgepoint Commons. The project involves two parcels that are adjacent, 3401050 and parcel number 050D. The project site is located in the southwest corner of the intersection of Deep Bottom Drive and Carrollton Boulevard. The current zoning for the site is conditional general commercial and conditional urban residential. It is an election district, District 4. And the request is to change the zoning district to conditional planned development mixed use to allow for 147 townhomes and 1.5 acres of commercial space. This map shows the location of the project site. As you can see, Deep Bottom Drive is in that left top hand corner of your screen, while Route 17 or Carrollton Boulevard runs through the middle. Clear Creek borders the site on the rear, and the Ashby subdivision borders the site to the south, along with the Carrollton Volunteer Fire Department. This is the future recommended land use map from our 2020 comprehensive plan. The site has a future recommended land use designation of mixed use. It is bordered on the north by other property that has a similar mixed use designation. It is across Route 17 from property that is designated as business and employment. That is part of the Archers Mead planned community. It is also bordered to the south by Ashby, which has a future recommended land use designation of suburban residential. This is the existing zoning for the property. As I mentioned earlier, it is already zoned conditional general commercial along the road frontage with Route 17, with conditional urban residential to the rear. It is bordered to the west and the north by property that is zoned rural agriculture conservation, as well as property zoned suburban residential to the south. This is the street frontage of Route 17. I actually took this image from Google Earth because it shows the property that, as it is a little less overgrown. This is the road frontage with Deep Bottom Road. There is a wooded ravine between Deep Bottom Drive and the project site itself that does have stream and wetland features in it. In October of 2008, the Board of Supervisors approved a rezoning for this project. It zoned 9.2 acres from rural agriculture conservation to conditional general commercial, and another 33 for conditional urban residential to allow up to 350 multifamily units and up to 8.5 acres of commercial. 120 of the residential units were designated as workforce rental apartments. Another 230 units were designated as owner-occupied condominium units. In addition, 17% or up to 39 of the owner-occupied condos could be designated workforce units, and another 116 could be designated as age-restricted. Additional proffers included that the maximum number of people that could live in each of the bedrooms in the rental units, up to 2 adults per bedroom and up to 2 children per bedroom. There was a prohibition on the property for participation in the housing voucher program for up to 40 years. There was a cash proffer for each unrestricted unit, residential unit of $13,611. There was another $1,470 cash proffer for each age-restricted unit, and another $5,700 and change for each workforce unit. There was a list of 20 prohibited uses for the commercial property to include things like a commercial kennel, motor vehicle repair, mini storage, among others. There was also a commercial cash proffer of $632 per 1,000 square feet. Other criteria included open space areas, architectural criteria, recreational amenities, and transportation improvements. These transportation improvements on the original plan included a northbound left turn lane extension on Route 17, a median break relocation to be shared with Archers Mead, an entrance on Deep Bottom Drive, right-of-way dedication and an emergency access onto Britt Way, and a proffer that if VDOT found it was needed, they would install a traffic light within 20 years of the date of approval or within 5 years of the completion of the project, whichever happened earlier. So this is the original concept plan that was approved as part of the 2008 rezoning. You can see the 75,000 square feet of retail and office space that was planned along the street frontage of Route 17. There was a full access entrance here that would have shared a light across the street from Archers Mead, and then the multi-family units was in the rear. You can also see the wetland and stream features that they mapped along the northern and western boundary and along the south, and then you can see the emergency access with Britt Way here. This is a map showing Britt Way and the planned connection here where Britt Way actually touches the property line and the future turnaround designation here on Britt Way. And this is where they're planning to come through. In December of 2004, a new developer submitted an application to change the zoning from the existing zoning to conditional plan development mixed use. The proposal would reduce the number of residential units from 350 multifamily units to 147 owner-occupied townhome units. It would remove the age restriction and workforce housing unit criteria. It would reduce the total commercial square footage from 75,000 square feet to 1.5 acres, or about 26,136 square feet. It removes the cash proffer for both the residential and commercial uses, and it prohibits the same list of commercial uses as before. It does retain architectural criteria and a mandatory property owners association that will maintain all the open space and common areas. All the resource protection area buffers, wetlands, and streams are located in common open space areas, but it does remove the proffer for the full Phase 1 archaeological and architectural survey that was proffered earlier. It removes the entrance from Deep Bottom Drive, changes the main entrance on Carrollton Boulevard from a full access entrance to a right-in, right-out only entrance, and provides full access to Britt Way for access to the traffic light at Ashby and Route 17. It includes a southbound right-hand turn lane on Route 17 to enter the project. It includes the closure of the existing median break on Route 17 if the development occurs before Archer's Mead does, and an extended northbound left-hand turn lane at the Ashby Way and Route 17 intersection to accommodate the additional left-hand turns. This is the new conceptual plan that is part of the new application. As you can see, the right-in, right-out entrance is right here on Route 17. The 147 owner-occupied townhome units are located in the middle, and all of the wetlands and RPA areas are located in common areas and open space areas, and this would be, to the rear of the property is the entrance onto Britt Way. This is an open space, an illustrative open space plan. It shows the location of the proposed parks. Those are the red asterisks that you see located around the property. The purple dashed line is the planned extension of the multi-use, multi-purpose trail along Route 17. And these are some model examples of what the townhomes could look like that were provided by the developer. So staff, when they received the application documents, we analyzed the documents for potential impacts on public facilities and services. The applicant submitted a traffic impact analysis, which shows approximately 2,137 daily trips generated by the development, with 243 of those trips occurring in the AM peak hour and another 162 trips occurring in the PM peak hour. This represents a reduction in daily trips from the original 4,800 that were going to be generated by the 2008 rezoning. However, there are going to be 402 additional daily trips added to Britt Way and Ashby Way. The proffered road improvements meet the needs of the new development according to VDOT and county transportation. We also looked at school impacts. Schools projected that the new development would generate a total of 43 students, with 13 students attending Carrollton, 11 for West Side, 6 for Smithfield Middle, and 13 for Smithfield High School. Schools also added that based on current program capacity and enrollment as of September 2024, they confirmed there is enough space to accommodate the students currently. This is a reduction from the 59 total students generated by the existing approved project. When Fire and EMS looked at the application, they projected 55 additional calls for service, with 47 additional EMS calls and 8 additional fire service calls. The department states that sufficient capacity exists to serve the new project. The Sheriff's Office also looked at the application, and although they had some concerns with potential impacts to traffic safety based on the continued growth in the area, there was sufficient capacity to meet the new demand. We also looked at parks and recreational impacts, and as we know, each new person, resident in the county, will continue to diminish the existing level of service for parks and recreational facilities without adding new facilities to our network. However, the proposed development proposes to include 5 neighborhood pocket parks with amenities such as benches, gazebos, and playground equipment, the walking trail, permanently preserved common open space areas, as well as an extension of the multipurpose trail along Route 17. Wetland and RPA buffers at the west side of the site will remain undisturbed to the greatest extent possible and be located in common open space areas. They do project a small impact to the RPA due to the drainage pipe for the stormwater BMP and possible impacts to an isolated non-tidal wetland area on the northern end. The previous Phase 1A study that was submitted in 2008 identified 32 acres as having a high probability of archaeological resources and recommended a full Phase 1 study, including shovel testing. The new proffers omit this condition. However, as a zoning administrator, upon site plan review, I can require this study be done. The fiscal impact analysis estimates a total tax revenue over 20 years to be almost $12 million, compared to $3.2 million in costs for services and facilities to serve the new development. This results in a factor of revenue versus cost of 3.7. And these revenues are based on an average home price of $369,000 and a projected value for the commercial piece of $1.25 million. The Commissioner of Revenue reviewed this study and was satisfied with the conclusions. Staff also looked at the consistency of the new project with county plans and ordinances. As I mentioned earlier, the project site is designated as future mixed use and environmental conservation on the recommended future land use plan in the 2020 comprehensive plan. These mixed use areas are meant to integrate office, residential, commercial, and other uses in one master planned area. And it's best located on major transportation routes and should also have access to public water and sewer, infrastructure, and capacity for more intense development. Mixed-use areas should provide multimodal connections to the community and conserve environmentally sensitive areas. Meanwhile, environmental conservation areas should remain largely undeveloped as they consist mostly of wetlands, floodplains, forest, and some areas of farmland. This project is generally consistent with the future recommended land use designations as described. The project generally is consistent with our planned development mixed use, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area, and Newport Development Service Overlay zoning district ordinance requirements, with the exception that the entrance sign, which is not permitted in the required 70-foot setback per section 4-18005, which will require a variance from the BZA in order for that sign to be placed there. So taking all this into consideration, staff identified the following strengths and weaknesses. Strengths include that the proposed project is generally consistent with the future recommended land use designation of mixed use and environmental conservation. There is sufficient school, utility, public safety, and emergency medical service capacity to serve the additional service demands. Proffered conditions include road improvements to address traffic impacts generated by the development. The conceptual plan is generally consistent with ordinance requirements. Environmentally sensitive areas are located in permanently protected common open space area, maintained in perpetuity by the Property Owners Association. And the project does retain a small portion of non-residential commercial development, which will generate employment opportunities and additional tax revenues. Weaknesses include that Britt Way and Ashby Way will see an increase in traffic along both residential roads. New proffers remove the previous commitment to obtain a Phase 1 study and follow any recommendations for further study. The proposed reduction in commercial space reduces non-residential revenues. However, there is less traffic impacts as a result. Although a sign is not permitted within the required 70-foot buffer adjacent to Route 17, one is shown in the neighborhood plan and the master concept plan, despite staff comments that this is not the appropriate process for this variance request. Based on the strengths listed above, staff recommends approval of the project with the proffered conditions except for the entrance sign location. I am available following public hearing should you have any questions, and I will take a moment now to load the applicant's. You want the PowerPoint?
Good evening. My name is Amy Bokikio, and I am here on behalf of Land Planning Solutions. Our office is located at 5857 Harborview Boulevard in the city of Suffolk. I'm actually really excited to share with you this evening a very uncommon application of a downzoning of a piece of property in Isle of Wight, and that is a request to remove the current plan that proposes or is approved for 350 units down to 147 units. I'd also like the commission to know that the project team met with the Carrollton Civic League Association a week ago, last Monday. We met with about 50 folks. I think some were regulars and others were guests for that particular evening. We discussed the project for about an hour. We answered questions, heard what their concerns were in preparation for this meeting tonight. So the site is located, as you know, off of Route 17. It's just north of the Carrollton Fire Station and south of Deep Bottom Drive. It is, once again, as a reminder, located in the Newport Development Service District, where the county's comprehensive plan has called for strategic growth for over 30 years now along Route 17. In addition to reviewing this project with the county's overall land use plan and the zoning ordinance, this project should also be reviewed in conjunction with the VDOT Route 17 arterial preservation plan. And that plan calls for strategic interconnections between neighborhoods and limited access or limited new accesses, especially on Route 17. So the existing approved zoning, as mentioned, is urban residential and general commercial, and that called for 350 total units that were multifamily buildings. They were comprised of 3 stories in height, usually 12 units per floor or so, and as you can see, there were surface parking lots kind of on the perimeter of the site, to where the light pollution and noise that would have been experienced by neighboring property owners would have been much greater than if you had a townhome use with landscape buffers. I would also like to point out that there were previously 2 points of ingress and egress on Route 17, one to the north to Deep Bottom and then one tying into Britt Way. Whereas the plan that we're proposing only has 2 points of access to comply with the corridor plan and comments that we've received from VDOT. Overall, we think that the impacts of this original rezoning and concept plan are far greater than what is being requested today in 2025. For 17 years now, the property owners have been paying taxes on this piece of land as if it is, zoned and ready for 350 units. So we'd like to keep that in mind. They've been working diligently to try and see what other options they have for best utilizing this piece of land. The previous plan did not include a thorough wetlands delineation. We've updated the delineation and we're showing where the approximate stream and wetlands are located on the northern side of the site. We're not proposing to impact any of the environmental features or the 100-foot resource protection area. Since 2008, the environmental regulations have become more stringent, and so we're discouraged from impacting those areas of the site at all. If we were to connect out to Deep Bottom, one of the additional considerations is that it would require another 460 linear feet or so of additional roadway cost to extend to Deep Bottom, as well as another 750 linear feet of potential widening and curb and gutter and those sort of things. So those are significant costs that may even make the project not feasible. The VDOT corridor study that was conducted explored an option of potentially cul-de-sacking Deep Bottom. That's to be determined. It's still far out in the future. However, we think that that idea should be accounted for, and so once again, it's not in our best interest to extend out to Deep Bottom. Once again, we're proposing only 1.5 acres of commercial at the entrance to the site, as opposed to 9.5 acres of the previous plan. And the second point of access would come from an extension of Britt Way. This plan, I'd like to point out, does feature kind of a looped road for a connected subdivision that's walkable and inviting, as well as landscaped buffers on all of the perimeters of the site. Transitioning into a little bit of a comparison between the 2008 plan and the new plan, it's about 203 fewer dwelling units, half the previous density. All of the units would be for sale market rate townhomes. It's approximately 50,000 square feet of less commercial space, 80% less daily vehicular trips from a traffic perspective, and significantly more green space and protected environmental areas. Also, since 2008, as you know, the Brewers Neck and Route 17 intersection improvements were completed about a year ago, and so that's a significant improvement for this area in Carrollton that previously didn't exist when the original rezoning took place. So given all of these positive characteristics associated with the new application, we really do feel that it's a more compatible use from the corridor as you transition to the Ashby subdivision. Here you have the 2005 Ashby subdivision plat, and I highlighted here that the cul-de-sac was in fact intended to be temporary, and that it was intended to be extended to the undeveloped piece of land, which is fairly typical with county subdivision ordinances. We kind of see that all over Hampton roads. And the homes at the end of Britt Way were constructed around 2009. So 4 years after this plat was recorded, as well as after the original rezoning. And then with regards to vehicular travel, the residential portion of the project is expected to generate about 70 peak AM trips and 80 or so peak PM trips. And if there was a future commercial use, which we've kind of estimated maybe 20 employees or so, we've estimated the peak trips associated with that as well. The proffered roadway improvements include optimizing the signal timing at the Ashby Way and Carrollton Boulevard signal, as well as extending the southbound left turn lane to provide 200 feet of storage and 200 feet of a taper, which is the current VDOT standards. The proposed layout includes 50% of the site as open space, which is a significant change from the original plan. It would also provide significant beautification along Route 17 to include landscaping, streetscaping, an 8-foot multi-use trail. And this would provide walkability and bikeability to the North Retail Center, where Publix is opened as of this year. And then in addition, it would provide connectivity to the retail that's south of our site and the USPS post office there. We also included a rendering of a sign design for the project as part of the rezoning, and we understand that this would go through your normal sign permitting process, so that's not of significant concern to us this evening, but we did include it with our package to give you a feel for the design. Lastly, we have some architectural concepts for what the townhomes would look like, as well as potential for a small medical office, office building, or small retail center to be located at the front of the property. Overall, we really believe that the project to downzone the property and provide townhomes and a small retail site is much more compatible to the surrounding land use patterns in the area, and really the impacts are much more positive with this kind of layout. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Bill Riddick. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, my name is William Riddick, and I'm an attorney from Smithfield, and I've been asked by the developer to address, I guess, two issues that came up with as a result of the meeting with the Community Association last week. The first one, Ms. Bocchicchio has already addressed in some form, and that was the issue of connection to Britt Way. As she pointed out on that plat, that anticipated connection back in 2006 when the plat was last revised, it was anticipated that the cul-de-sac would be a temporary turnaround, and that Brittway would be extended, and that's always been the case. That's a very common planning tool and required in almost every locality. It's required for several reasons. Number one, it doesn't make sense that if someone lived in one neighborhood and they wanted to visit someone in the adjacent neighborhood, that they would have to go out on a major thoroughfare. But the other issue is a safety issue. If there were a blockage of one of the major entry points at either one of the subdivisions, there would be an ability for people in either neighborhood to exit out onto Route 17. And it also gives the ability for emergency services to access the properties in that event. So this is a very common thing. As far back as 2005, it was the policy of the County of Isle of Wight to do that, and I think it's good planning, and I think that's been insisted upon. And VDOT really didn't give us any option. They said that there's really no option for access to this property without an access point to VDOT. So that's why it's there, and I know that's a big concern of the people that are probably here tonight and want to speak about that, but I'm just trying to explain why it's there. The other issue that came up was the issue of cash proffers in connection with schools. This is a real hot button item, and people don't understand it. The law in Virginia is that in order for a locality to accept cash proffers for schools, there has to be an identified need in your CIP for a school or school improvements, and the development that's being proposed has to trigger an a drain on excess capacity. And the school system says that's not the case. The only school that apparently is affected potentially would be West Side, and that's not within the service district where this locality is situated. In other words, students are not going to go to West Side, and so it has no impact on West Side. So if we were to offer cash proffers in connection with this application, you couldn't accept it. It would be illegal, and Mr. Jones can explain that to you, and I think Ms. Ring can explain to you about the issue of connectivity. But that's why there's no cash proffer for cash proffers for schools, because if we offered it, you couldn't accept it. That's hard to understand, and I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense, but that's what the General Assembly has determined, and of course you're bound by what the law in the state of Virginia is, and so we're just complying with the law. With respect to both of these issues, we are doing exactly what the law requires, and so that's why they asked me to speak about this. And if you have questions at the end of the public hearing, we'd be happy to address those. And we, just for the record, Mr. Jones, we reserve rebuttal at the end of the public hearing.
Yeah, rebuttal.
Thank you.
All right, this time I'd like to open up the public hearing. The public will have 5 minutes to discuss on this item individually. Do we have a sign-up list, or is?
There's no sign-up list.
Interesting. Please state your name and address.
My name is Cassidy Fisher, and I live at 22485 Brittway, and that's Carrollton 23314.
Thank you.
My name is Cassidy Fisher, and I am a homeowner and resident on Brittway with my husband and our 2.5-year-old daughter. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening about a matter that weighs heavily on the hearts of our many families in our neighborhood, the proposed connection to Brittway to the new development. Tonight, I respectfully ask you to consider the real human cost of this decision, not just in numbers. Sorry, this is very much out of my comfort zone. Not just in the numbers of traffic projections, but in what it means for the lives of the people who call Brittway home, especially our children. It endangers our children and destroys the character of Brittway. Brittway is more than just a road. It's a community. It's where kids ride their bikes until sunset, where neighbors gather in front yards, and where parents feel safe letting their children play outside. Sorry. With only 200 cars per day, it's a rare kind of community. I need to take my glasses off so I can't read. Over 400 additional cars per trips per day. Many of these cars will belong to people with no connection to our community, simply using Brittway as a shortcut to the Ashby Way and Route 17. What is now a quiet street would become a thoroughfare, busy, noisy, and unpredictable. With the sharp increase in traffic come serious safety concerns. Drivers unfamiliar with the area are less likely to respect our speed limits. More parked cars and turning vehicles reduces visibility for kids crossing the streets and riding bikes. Brittway lacks adequate sidewalks, stop signs, crosswalks, or streetlights, forcing pedestrians, especially children, to share space with vehicles. And with more cars coming means more distractions, drivers checking their phones, GPS, running through the neighborhood, or navigating streets they don't know. This isn't just about inconvenience, it's about the real fear of what could happen when a distracted driver rounds a corner too quickly and doesn't see a child chasing a ball or riding a scooter. This is not a small adjustment. This is a transformation, and once it happens, we can't go back. The peace, the safety, and the reason many of us moved to Britt Way will be forever changed. Secondly, it is unfairly burdening our neighborhood and brings long-term consequences. According to the developer's own traffic analysis, Britt Way would carry the weight of 75% of inbound and outbound traffic from a development we had no part in planning. We are not being asked to share the load, we are being asked to bear it. And this burden isn't just traffic, it's what comes with it. Our roads are not built for this kind of use. They will degrade faster, creating potholes, erosion, and repair cost. Drainage systems will be strained, leading to runoff, pooling water, and long-term stormwater issues. Noise pollution, vehicle emissions, and the loss of green space will erode with peaceful character and environmental health of our neighborhood. This plan takes a shortcut through our lives, through the community, because it's easier for investing in the better long-term infrastructure somewhere else. But the cost of that shortcut is paid by our families, our children, and our quality of life. In closing, we are not here tonight to oppose growth or progress. We understand the need for development. We are asking you to honor the lives and community to allow Britt Way to stay the way it is, and to find a solution that does not place undue burden on an established, safe, and thriving neighborhood. Please do not let a decision of convenience become a permanent loss for the families who live here. We are asking you to protect what makes Britt Way special for our children, for our neighbors, and for the future we hope to build when we chose to make this place our home. Please do not approve this connection. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration.
Good morning, or afternoon, evening, commissioners, whatever it is. It's been a long day. First of all, I'd like to thank you for letting us have a voice tonight. Also, thank your planning staff for working with us. They've been very helpful. My name is John Mazer, 22480 Britt Way. 4 things I want to touch on tonight. Planning, the traffic study itself and some of the flaws, safety, and alternatives. We've heard a lot from a lot of people here tonight about different alternatives, what will work, what won't work. I don't see anybody from VDOT here to say which alternatives will work, which won't, and why, but definitely have some questions on that. Planning, the first thing, Route 17 has a corridor plan that the county's invested a great deal of money into to determine what kind of improvements on 17 will best be needed in the future. That plan has consists of a lot of access management. One of those access management tools is to take the stoplight out at Ashby and Route 17. It appears to me this plan is in direct conflict with some of the other plans. We've heard about environmental plans and everything is coordinated with different plans, but it seems to me that these are opposing plans. It kind of flies into place with the main purpose of this is for people to get out to take a left on 17, and the 17 corridor plan is to prevent that. So I just ask you to look at those plans and try to look long-term for the future Route 17. I think it's in the county's interest to cater that's a main thoroughfare for the county, and keeping that moving is important, which is why that plan is what it was. Traffic analysis. My first career, I'm an engineer. My first career was with the VDOT up in Williamsburg as their assistant resident engineer for land development. I approved thousands of site plans for subdivisions, commercial entrances, issued thousands of permits. So I took a look at that traffic study, and this is something I have a little bit of a background in and how I started my career. When I looked at the traffic analysis, there were some fatal flaws, I think, that you probably should know about and maybe have VDOT or your planning staff take another look into. One is the traffic study says there's a 50% distribution coming from the north and the south. It would make sense that everything was 50-50. However, when they looked at the entering traffic volumes coming into Britt Way, they only used 25%. They figured the other 25 is going to go up and make a U-turn. I don't know who made that assumption, but I know if it was me, I'm going to take the left turn at the light all day long, probably. So I think that number's low. The other flaw I feel in the traffic analysis is they said no commercial traffic is going to come down Britt Way. I find that hard to believe. Again, if the main purpose is to get out to the light and take a left, commercial traffic probably is going to use Britt Way for that. The commercial traffic is estimated to be 500 vehicles a day, I believe. It's about half what the residential is. So if you add, in addition to the 200 that we have now, another 400 vehicles for just the residents, and add another 300 or 400 that's not accounted for in the traffic study to Britt Way, you're getting close to 1,000 vehicles on Britt Way. Like I said, I ask you to take a look at that and consider that, because I think there's some information that's not fully you're not fully informed in your decision. Safety, we heard about that. I think we all share the concerns, and you'll probably, I'm sure other people will be talking more about that as well. I will say, if all else fails and the commission does approve this, I would hope that at the very least there would be some speed humps or other traffic calming measures that you would have the developer proffer to install in our neighborhood to keep things as quiet as they can. The other thing with the commercial development, we don't know what it's going to be. It could be Fat Boys too. It could be Harleys coming through our neighborhood. Now, I love Fat Boys. The food is great, but you got to consider this when you're considering there's no way to restrict that traffic from coming through our neighborhood unless you have a cop out there all the time following cars. So I guess in closing, a few key points. I got 30 seconds left. Is commercial traffic is a big concern. We don't know what will be there initially or eventually and how that'll happen. I think there are alternatives at Deep Bottom Road. I think they should be looked at more closely. I think the original cul-de-sac that we heard did have approved connection, but that was for emergency only, as I found out tonight. I didn't hear, I read that in the minutes, I didn't hear anybody else talking about that. It's for emergency only. It was never approved for this type of connection. So so that's all I have. Again, I thank you for your time. I know by the people here, you can tell what's very dear to our hearts, and any consideration you can honestly give to looking at this a little closer in the traffic analysis and the actual impacts to Britt Way is greatly appreciated. So, thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is John Springfield. My address is 22491 Sundown Drive, and I need to hit this again, don't I?
No, I got you.
Okay, 22491 Sundown Drive, Carrollton. My wife and I have lived in Ashby since 1994, and we've raised our 3 wonderful children in Ashby. Alawite, I have to add, Alawite County is a wonderful community to live in and raise a family, like you all know. And again, I'd just also like to thank you for the opportunity of speaking to the commission. I would like to take a second and ask anybody here that's representing Ashby to please stand up so you can see how many people are here, because not everybody's going to speak. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I don't represent the group. These are my views, and personally, I expect growth in Alawite County. I'm not anti-growth, I am not for growth, but I am for smart growth, and I am for existing citizens to be treated fairly and compatibly. I did want to applaud the developer for reducing the density in the project from 350 condominiums, apartments to 147 townhouses. My biggest concern with the project is, like other people have been discussing, is the Britt Way connection. The Ashby community has 135 single-family standalone homes And the traffic analysis for the Bridges Point Commons, what I read in the newspaper, was 1,000 in and out per day, but evidently it's more like over 2,000. That's going to have an impact on Ashby. I assume, and this is my assumption, that half the trips in and out will come through Ashby to get to the light. It may be more than that. But this will substantially increase the traffic in Ashby, causing safety issues with walkers, bikers, and yes, there's a lot of children in Ashby. And this will also have a negative impact on property values. And I want to say, as the gentleman said earlier, that I'm not clear on any traffic analysis being done with Ashby because of this development. And Ashby was not designed for this type of traffic. I would like to also discuss this right in only and right out only connection to Route 17. It seems that a study called the Route 17 Arterial Preservation Plan was performed from 2020 until 2022 during the height of the COVID pandemic. Not the greatest timing, I think. It indicates stoplights. I guess I should put my glasses on, huh? It indicates stoplights will be deleted and right in and right out only turns at the existing Route 17 intersections of Ashby Way, O'Mara Drive, Sugar Hill Road, Cedar Grove Road, and now this new development. Currently, there are approximately 747 existing homes on these roadways leading into Route 17, and another 147 townhouses will now be added. So I estimate, and again, this is using 1,000 trips for the new development instead of the 2,100 and odd number. I estimate that there's about 6,000 estimated trips daily from these 5 neighborhoods. And then using good old common sense, I figure half of them are going to go out to Route 17, and either leaving or coming back are going to have to make U-turns. So, and half of those will be, so approximately there'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 U-turns being made every day on Route 17. I don't think this is really safe, but that's my opinion. And I also like to add another thing. See, wow, okay. A quote from the proffers, they stated a buffer by the Ashby neighborhood. And now they have a road going through that buffer. So a buffer is not a buffer if it has a road in it. A buffer is a space between 2 entities. And here you have townhouses and single-family homes. Those are 2 different entities. There should be a solid buffer between the 2. And that's all I have on. Nope, I got.
No,
Your time's up,
you've
sir.
run over by 40.
I'm over.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Finish the point.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Mathis. I live at 15062 Christie Court, Carrollton. I do have a couple of comments. Thank you for letting me talk. I guess I spoke on the phone December 19th to Mr. Robbins, and he said that the Plan 2040 hasn't been funded yet, so there hasn't been any decisions made on the right out of Ashby, but they said that VDOT, Isla White said that VDOT was gonna talk. I called VDOT, VDOT said it's y'all, and we're in the middle. So that's a frustration. Just gonna be honest with you. We can't play the tossing the ball back and forth the tennis court. We gotta decide. And I wish VDOT was here to answer some questions, but that is not in my control. So the conflict seems to be when I call VDOT, they don't know what y'all are doing. When I call y'all, y'all don't know what VDOT's doing. If that is a road that's important, you would think that y'all would be communicating with that and talking with that. I do disagree with the attorney. West Side is a pickup, unless my son's been going to a fake school for the last 3 years. I know West Side is a pickup in our neighborhood. So I disagree with that. I disagree with 43 total students are going to be there. If you think about the larger picture, yes, we can talk Ashby community. It is just us. I get it. But if you're talking about the bigger scheme, I'm an Isle of Wight citizen. I worry about infrastructure. I worry about schools being overcrowded. We are still sharing a middle school and a high school together in one building that was designed for one school. So I disagree with the 43 kids. If you're doing 147 houses times 2, that's almost 300 roughly, and you're allowing 2 kids, who's going to manage that? Because I know you can say 2 adults, 2 kids. I've seen townhomes where 4 kids have been in there. I've seen 5. I've seen breaking renter code. I mean, who's going to manage that? The other thing I have kind of an issue with is the right turn. I have a 17-year-old that goes to Smithfield High School. I have a younger one that's coming up. You're going to expect our kids to make a U-turn when people don't follow the speed limit down 17. I have almost been blindsided, 70 miles, people flying 70, 60, because they are going to the shipyard in the morning, or they're going to that side, or they're going to Publix. So I have to make a U-turn every time I want to go to Food Line or Publix. And I will disagree with the traffic flow, because I know as a parent in the summertime, I leave about 5 or 6 times a day out of Ashby to go places, to take my kids to ball games or dance or take my dogs places. So I disagree with that. If I myself are making 5 or 10 times out throughout the day, or 3 or 4, I disagree with those numbers. I think that most people like the townhomes and they like the development. I have lived here 10 years, and I lived over across in O'Mara for 2 years when we rented. We were military, we moved here. I think that building up takes away the ambience of Isle of Wight County. And we are going to become the next Norfolk and build on top of each other where we're on top of each other. I don't think we need any more storage units. I don't think we need any, and I'm just saying this, I don't think we need any more things. And I like Isle of Wight County the way we are. We're going to get so overcrowded, our infrastructure is going to bust. You say that we have cops that can, manage this, but I don't see anyone managing the flying people going out 17 out of Ashby, running lights, dump trucks, running lights over by Carrollton Elementary. So I think the picture is much larger than just Ashby. Yes, it affects me. I'm sure if you lived in my subdivision, it would affect you too, personally, because you wouldn't like having to make a, U-turn every time you had to go somewhere on the west side. But I will say at the end of this, I think that the numbers are off. The data doesn't add up. And I don't like also being told that y'all came out in our neighborhood and we were okay with this, because I don't think we are okay with this. So I wish you would think about this and consider this and consider our arguments and just, I know what to say. I'm not going to cry or be made fun of for crying. However, it is our neighborhood, and if you live there, you would feel the same way we do. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Come on up, please state your name and address.
Good afternoon, Tyler Muller, 15088 Yarmouth Court. My wife and I just moved here with our daughter. I'm a professional engineer and land development consultant. I oppose the connection through Brittway, and I would support it if the connection was instead made somewhere else. Briefly, I agree with what was said earlier. It's not clear to me why the site can't have a left in on 17. that would seem acceptable. Per the traffic study, for example, the AM peak hours say that there's going to be 55 U-turns at Deep Bottom Drive. So and then 5 left turns into Ashby, which I think it'll be more like 100% northbound traffic will want to cut through Ashby. So if 50 versus 5 are allowed to U-turn at Deep Bottom Way, I don't see why they wouldn't be allowed to just take a left on Deep Bottom Way and maybe connect through there instead of through Ashby, just as a alternative. Per the comprehensive plan or the Route 17 corridor plan as well, it seemed to me as though Deep Bottom Way was slated to be a minor collector. So it would make sense to me if improvements were considered there rather than through the local subdivision. But I'm not sure how that's all playing out right now. As far as connectivity goes and connecting through Britt, VDOT requires multiple directions or multiple connections, multiple directions if you have more than 50 lots. If they connect through Deep Bottom, I believe that would satisfy the requirements. You're also required to connect to somebody who's sub to you, but I could produce a list of exceptions that have been granted to that policy in situations like this where the constituents that the policy is supposed to serve aren't happy with it and don't feel served by it. So I think that's worth considering. As another point, if the connection through Deep Bottom, affects environmental features, that can be offset by conserving environmental features elsewhere. So I don't think the safety of all of the kids in the neighborhood is less valuable than the safety of trees in the back of the site. And additionally, as far as environmental crossings are concerned, that happens all the time. People cross RPAs, wetlands regularly. So that should be allowed. And as far as an environmental benefit to that, again, if you offset the impacts somewhere else on the site, that's easy enough to do. But you also get flooding detention when you build roads and culverts across it. You get backwater conditions that prevent downstream flooding. So as much as there is an impact, there's also benefits to, again, constituents. So I would just ask that you consider an alternative connection, not through Britt. Thank you.
Kip Reddick, and I live at 15095 Yarmouth Court, Carrollton, Virginia. Thank you so much for listening to all of us here. We really, really appreciate it. I am a professor at Christopher Newport University and have been teaching there since 1991. I started building in Ashby in 1992. My mom had a farm in Isle of Wight County from 1975. So I've been around Isle of Wight County a long time and have really enjoyed the benefits of this community here. I just want to speak to some of the power of some of the voices, not so much the technical stuff, but the idea of the community that is Ashby. My kids are all grown and gone. My son was less than 1 year old when we moved in, and my daughter was 3. And they enjoyed the neighborhood with all their friends that have all grown and gone away now. But the neighborhood was a safe place for them. Some of my neighbors that have been there a long time, right, helped raise my kids. And now I'm one of the older folks around the neighborhood, and I do ride my bike around. I walk around the neighborhood a lot. I see a lot of these kids, and the atmosphere is just a really great place for these children to grow up. They have no fear. I mean, kids that live right down the street from me come walking up to my house. I have a garden in the backyard. They'll walk right up and walk into my garden and pick vegetables out of there. They feel safe in this place, and that's some of the testimony you already heard. And I do think that building this road through there is going to change that situation, and that's not a good thing. These people moved here, right? And I was one a long time ago, but I'm really speaking for the younger families especially, right? They moved here with a dream, and I think that this I don't think building the development is killing their dream, but cutting through at Britt Way is a dream killer. Thank you for listening.
Hello. So this is spur of the moment, so we'll see how I do. My name is Angela Slaughter. I live at 22473 Sundown Drive. I agree with everything that people are talking about tonight. I moved into the subdivision in 2004, so I was back in this building at all the other times that this development was being discussed, and I think that the changes that have been made to the plan are good ones, kind of reducing the size and the impact. The one thing no one's talked about regarding these U-turns, and I think it's an important point that we make, is that there was something that we couldn't historically anticipate, and it's happened. Due to the expansion and the construction work around the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, due to the backups and the difficulties with getting through the Monitor Merrimack, James River Bridge and 17 has become the alternative route. Now, while we can look at this situation and try to come up with some sort of set of numbers to try to estimate the traffic, we can't estimate what the future impact is going to be as far as these U-turns, not with just everyone who lives here, but everyone who's coming through here. From Newport News, we're the midpoint to Norfolk and to Newport News. So I just want to invite you to give that some consideration, because that was an unintended consequence that didn't even come up when we originally discussed this the two prior times. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Cargill. I've lived in Ashby since 1997. I was an owner-builder. I remember Kip was building his house a few moments ago, Kip Riddick, the professor. Two things about that concern me. Number one, I went to Regent Law class of 91, and there's covenants and restrictions. Britt Way was not part of the Ashby plan. The owner of that land, or somehow, how they designated it, whether it be a corporation by the owner of that land that became Britt Way, Ashby West, he bought Lot 6 and then subdivided it so they could put that in there. It turned out to be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. The houses are some of the best in the neighborhood there, 600,000 I would estimate. But it's a violation of the covenants and restrictions. And so now a lot of time has gone by. There's a restriction for Ashby development that says you can't subdivide a lot. I don't have a copy with me. They're on file. You can check it out. So they violated that. They actually came to my house and asked me to sign a waiver of the covenants and restrictions. Like I said, it turned out to be great, but to tap into Britt Way is just a further violation, an extension. It wouldn't even be possible if they hadn't violated it before. And it talks about the covenants and restrictions are designed to prevent this very thing. Townhomes and rental properties were not envisioned to be part of that. It says it was supposed to be a rural community. Ashby Phase 1 there, Kip's in it, and Phase 1, so am I. Our lots are almost an acre in size. And there was, so that's, to keep in mind. You may say, well, we didn't do anything. It's too late to object because we didn't object to Britt Way. But I would suggest that by tapping into Ashby development for whatever benefits to the developer would just be a continued breach of that. And then there's covenants and restrictions for Ashby West, by the way, and they envisioned expansion. There's a provision in there, it's Article 3. I went to the civic meeting a week ago and brought this up, but it says that the developer had 15 years to expand from the date of the filing, which was 2008. It's stamped there, it's recorded, it's public notice, and so 15 plus 2008 is 2023. So the opportunity to expand Ashby West, which is Britt Way, expired 2 years ago. If you were to, now you might say, well, that only applied to the developer, but I think that the people who spent that money, those wonderful homes, and everybody in Ashby Phase 1 have a right to rely on those covenants and restrictions, which were designed to prevent this. So I just want to throw that out there. And finally, in regard to the removal of the stoplight, my wife works for Norfolk Public Schools, and she leaves for work at 7:30 in the morning, and she said if that light weren't there, she wouldn't be able to get out. 3 times in the last week, I went up to the food line, which is to the left, out of Ashby Development from my house, and it was 4:30 in the afternoon each time, and traffic was so heavy from the James River Bridge that literally until the stoplight that was just ahead of me changed, it was bumper to bumper, not bumper to bumper, about 1 car length or 2 between every car. They're all going 40 miles an hour, and I could not turn. There was no gap until the light changed. So I'm really concerned that maybe during rush hour, we're not going to be able to get out in the morning or in the rush hour in the afternoon out of our development if they take away that stoplight. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Turpin, 15156 Yarmouth Court. Thank you very much for listening to all of our concerns. I hadn't planned to speak, but there were some things that came up I feel like I needed to address. We really appreciate what you've done with this development. The reduction in size, the way it's been drawn up, I think it's beautiful. I think it's going to be you're going to develop. Okay, we're going to develop. We understand development is inevitable in most cases. But I would like to say this, just because, Attorney Riddick, and I appreciate your comments too, and it's helpful for us to have knowledge, but just because you can do something, be it by rule, by law, doesn't always mean you should do it, okay? They talked about the 08 plan versus the plan now. They talked about how it was a better migration of a huger development to a smaller development, but what they're not saying is whether or not either one of those is really a good idea. The entranceway to Brittway is a bad idea. You're choosing to save costs because it was even indicated that it can be done at a higher expense to come in from another direction, but it's going to be at the expense of our neighborhood. And I think that's the choice that you're making is, can you do it? I don't know if you actually can. There's some questions about whether the road is stubbed properly, if it's a turnaround. I don't know. That's not my expertise. But just because you can doesn't mean that it's the correct choice to make. I implore the commission, if there's any way that you can find an alternative to running that traffic through our neighborhood, you need to do everything you can to find it. Something that wasn't discussed, it was shown in the developer's plan, was the increase in rescue services. Well, how are they going to get in our neighborhood? Nobody's talking about that, but the fire department is on our side of the entrance to the subdivision. And it's a right turn in, right turn out, which means the fire department can't go in except going through our development. So all of those additional medical calls, the fire trucks, all of that has to come in through Ashby. All of it. Every call that comes to that new development comes through our neighborhood. And it's not just the entrance to our neighborhood like it is at Eagle Harbor, where those apartments are at the very entrance to that neighborhood. It's a good ways into our neighborhood. I invite you to come drive through our neighborhood and see how far you have to come into our neighborhood to get to Brittway. You're going to pass 2 courts coming in. You're going to pass another one on Brittway, and it's just not designed for fire trucks, EMS, all of that traffic to go through safely, in my opinion. So, once again, I would hope the commission would dig a little deeper. Please try to find an alternative that doesn't cause us to have to go through our neighborhood, even if it costs them more money, okay? I think we're worth it. We've been there a long time. I've been there since, with KIP 92. I think we're worth it. I think if they have to spend a little more money to get through Deep Bottom Way, the impact there is negligible to residents in the long term. Even if, and they talked about the court turnaround, doesn't affect them. They can come Deep Bottom Way, make a left, come out, connect Brewer's Neck, and go on about their way and not impact a whole neighborhood of residents. So just because you can't do it doesn't mean you should do it. And I ask you, please look at any alternative you can find to not do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your time. I also had not planned on speaking. My name is Ralph Ciccolone, Schichlone. I live at the end of Ashby West, the court. I moved down here 5 years ago to be close to my grandchildren. I moved from Northern Virginia. Now, if you've never been to Northern Virginia, you have not experienced traffic, okay? But we started with the plan to move down here because the pressure, the whole environment was much less than what we were used to. And we see the development going on in Carrollton, in the whole area, and it certainly is not making us happy, but we understand. My main issue is with this U-turn. If emergency services have to come into our neighborhood, so they're probably going to come out, take a right at the fire station, take a right on Ashby, and come into our neighborhood. The only way that they can get out is Britt, because if they had to go out on Ashby and make a U-turn, large emergency vehicles, I think, are going to have a very difficult time doing a U-turn to get back to the firehouse. Now, I for some reason have noticed all of these tanker trucks, gas tanker trucks. There must be a tank farm down in Suffolk somewhere, because I see those tankers going up and down the road many times a day. Going full, going toward Newport News, empty, coming back, going back down to the tank farm. I have seen, I'm absolutely astounded at the number of red light runners down here. Multiple times can I sit at that traffic light at Ashby and watch people run that light. I've got the green, they're running that light. There are so many unsafe drivers down here, I'm shocked. To make us have to do a U-turn out of Ashby to go north on 17 is totally criminal. It's unsafe. Thank you.
Excuse me, I realize I just spoke a minute ago, but I wanted to add something very important.
Once in the evening.
Oh, is it?
Yes, sir, just once per evening.
Well, the developer mentioned something very important, an alternative to the plan. I can't.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you already addressed it? Okay.
No, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on this topic?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ramon Pierce. I own the property that my mother resides in on 22304 Deep Bottom Drive. So it come to my attention, the plan, and I hear a lot of the Ashby residents recommending Deep Bottom Drive as an alternative. So it is impressive, the amount of time they've been on Ashby, 1990s. My family's been on Deep Bottom Drive since the early 1900s. My great-grandfather owned half of the lots on Deep Bottom, in which he had deeded to my aunts. I have 4 aunts that have property on Deep Bottom, several other family members, and we have our own community there as well. I understand Ashby is a growing community, but I also want to remind the commission that Deep Bottom Drive is a community that's been standing in Carrollton since the early 1900s. So where we're at, we all want to be good citizens and make sure that whatever is the safest alternative for this plan is accomplished. But we also on a road that doesn't have sidewalks. We have children on that road as well, elderly people on that road as well. Since the developments that have already come to Carrollton, there's been an increase of traffic through Deep Bottom Drive. People call it the shortcut. Twice a month, someone get pulled out of the ditch, going around the curve at the top of the road because they don't know the road and they try to speed through, which is a hazard for everyone. So if we're going to look at any kind of alternatives involving Deep Bottom Drive, the concession will have to be a major structural improvement to that road. Also, some added signs and some safety features for the community, for the citizens that live in the community on Deep Bottom Drive. The reason why I came, I didn't want the conversation to blow by Deep Bottom because we're part of the community as well. So we want to make sure that to get to the minutes that Deep Bottom Drive is represented. We do have our own concerns, and we look to be good neighbors and good members of the community, but we don't want to get the traffic dumped on us either. We have, the average age, we have several elderly people that live on the street, several young children. It's currently building and growing as we speak, but adding another opportunity for increased traffic is going to require some infrastructure change and a major infrastructure change if we're going to try to, dump that traffic on Deep Bottom Drive. So I want to encourage the commission to consider if the powers at be are going to move how they move, but I want to make sure that you understand that we have a concern about the traffic as well. The same concern as the citizens of Ashby and other neighborhoods in Carrollton that's dealing with this boom of population. It's something that we all got to deal with, but since the early 1900s, my family's been on that road, and we have concerns as well, and we want to make sure our concerns are heard. Thank you.
I get time still? Okay. Just, thanks. Hi, my name is Angela Gibson, and I am an Ashby Way resident. I live at 22520 Britt Way, Carrollton, Virginia. I also echo what has been stated by the Ashby and Deep Bottom residents and thank the developer very much for the newer plan. I would like to note 3 things, and then I have something to read from my son, who's 20, who was unable to be here because of work. So if that's allowed, to read that.
Your time to speak.
Yeah, okay, great, awesome, thanks. For the 3 concerns, one, for the cul-de-sac, I live on Brittway, and so when we moved in 2008, we were the second home that was purchased, and we were told that cul-de-sac was there because there was wetlands. If you would like to come and visit, we actually sometimes will go down into the area there, and you will see, they walk down a hill, it's very steep, and there's a creek there, and there's wetlands. Now, if you go towards the northeast, it's the field, and the north to the northwest, it's the forest with the creek and the wetlands area. So with the maps that were shown earlier, I'd very much like for us to take a look at those more carefully from an environmental standpoint of view, because it looks like the cut through goes right over the creek or right through the creek. So I would like you please to take a look at that. Also, the idea of having common areas that are going to be maintained that are environmentally sensitive by an HOA kind of worries me, because that means it's on them and their funds to do that. And if this is if this is environmentally sensitive area as well as wetlands, which I can talk about that there are some species in the area that would have to be assessed concerning those wetlands. But I do appreciate the builders, the developers taking a look at reducing that footprint, but I want to look at that environmentally. The second thing is, again, focusing on the fact that Ashby Way cul-de-sac was only supposed to be a cutway through emergency services. The third piece being that the development that was built most recently to the south on 17 of Ashby, which is on Manor Drive, that does not have a second cut through, and that does not go to another neighborhood. So I'd like you to look at the fact that it is not happening in current development for every neighborhood and every development. So I say if Manor Drive and that development there can go out onto 17, then we don't need to go through Deep Bottom and we don't need to go through Brittway, and we can go out on 17 from that new development. Saying that, my son says, "Hi, my name is Aiden Gibson," same address. "I live on the street of the neighborhood that was proposed throughway. Our street and neighborhood does not have sidewalks. The model house has a small sidewalk in front of it, but no other houses do. Growing up, I would walk our dogs down the street to the front of the neighborhood and back. I would ride my bike on the street, and I would see people jogging up and down while their parents would push young kids in strollers. If there was a throughway connection to the new development from our neighborhood, it would become dangerous to walk on the street. There are bus stops for the school buses on our street, and I am concerned for the safety of myself and those who live where the connection is proposed all the way to the front of my neighborhood in Ashby. I also worry that if businesses are popular enough, there are not enough parking, people will start parking on the sides of the streets of our neighborhood, possibly blocking driveways and preventing people from either returning home or leaving home. I know that I can say safely that I speak for those on my street when I oppose this connection. Thank you for your time." That's from my son. And thank you very much for allowing us to have this time here today, and thank you for everyone being here.
Thank you.
How you doing? Pete Pruitt, 22510 Britt Way. I also oppose the connection to Britt Way. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the area, but the street itself, it's not really built for a good two-way traffic. So it's going, that with cars parked on the street will definitely cause some, narrowing, some extra usage of the, with extra usage of the road. I believe, the developer talked about the added cost of going somewhere else, a different, exit. But there would also be an added cost to Brittway itself. If you've been down that road, it doesn't even make sense to go that way. But if you've been down that road, you could see, you could come down, you could go to the bottom of a little hill, there's a stop sign, then you gotta go up a small hill, come around a blind corner, and then take a left onto O'Mara. That blind corner right there is gonna cause a lot of trouble right there, because there's times my daughter drives through and she's even said, she's a new driver, and she's even said that that's dangerous because you never know if somebody's there. You can't see, it's blind. Another thing is, if you've been down the street itself, it's crumbling. At all the drainages, there's been repair already, and it still needs to be more repair where the road's being washed out underneath. So the added cost of having to repair the road and maintain the road, would it be, is it worth it to do that, to bring our family into danger, narrowing the road with two-way traffic, the amount of cars coming through? I believe that there's a better way to go about this thing. I know the other road, the Deep Bottom Road, the houses aren't so close to the street as they are on Britt Way. In that area right there, if you can, help them develop that area and do the logistics that way, it might be beneficial, for everybody. Give them a sidewalk or whatever, but we have no room. Our houses are already close to the street, and some people would say, well, tough luck, but it's our families that we're looking out for, our children, the future of our children's children, to be on that street. We have a very tight community where all of us, are always on the street. We're always walking around. We're always greeting everybody. And once this happens, if it does happen, it would, like I said, it's gonna destroy the whole area. But again, just, think about the added costs to the street itself, having to reinforce the street compared to just going somewhere else. So, thank you.
Mr. Pruitt.
Nancy Burton, 15136 Evening Court. I wasn't going to get up either. But as the developers mentioned at the last meeting, they said because of the new neighborhood, there would be 147 houses, they would need 2 exits. Ashby has 135 houses with only one exit. So I just wanted to take that, take that into your consideration. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak for or against this item? Okay, hearing none, close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has a 5-minute rebuttal.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, commissioners and staff. I represent Allied Properties. My name is Christine Early. I live at 236 Bay Colony Drive, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Our office is in Moyock, North Carolina. We do work in Northeast North Carolina and also in Hampton Roads. I just wanted to say a few things before Amy gets back up. We did not want to have to access Britway. This is not our choosing. VDOT has required it of us and required the 2 accesses. One on 17, we're only allowed one on 17 because it's a limited access highway now. It wasn't in 2008 when the other rezoning happened. So we are required the 2 accesses by VDOT, and the Deep Bottom Drive access, it wasn't a consideration to us because of the environmental permitting, which would take years, and then we were told VDOT is considering making it a dead-end cul-de-sac. So if we access that, it will go to nowhere, maybe. We just don't know. We're just trying to meet the current requirements that are given to us. So I just wanted to mention that, and then Amy will mention the rest. But thank you for your time and consideration.
All right. I really appreciate and respect all the input given from the community members, and that's why we also chose to meet with them a week prior to the meeting. I'd like to reiterate that once again, this is a down zoning, and so the current 2008 plan is approved in terms of the rezoning and the types of uses that could go there. If this down zoning that you're considering tonight is not approved, then another property owner or developer down the road would still have the ability to develop the property per the 2008 design. And that process would take place without any public hearings and without any input from the community, whereas we are trying to be respectful of their input. First of all, the roads in Ashby are currently maintained by VDOT, and any roads in this development would also be publicly maintained by VDOT, and so taxpayer dollars can go towards the maintenance of those roadways if that's a concern. When the arterial preservation plan was developed, I think it was originally created in 2007, and then they looked at it again in 2022. Keep in mind that they analyzed the entire corridor from Brewers Neck Road all the way to 664. And so when that analysis was done, it was looking at all of the intersections and how they all work together, not just under the lens of, honing in on just the Ashby traffic light. So I just would like to remind everyone of that, that we're hoping for a plan that works for not just the adjacent neighborhoods, but also the entire corridor and the entire county. And I think if we perhaps need to hear from VDOT before making a decision on this application, whether that's in writing or in person at another meeting, we're open to that as well, if that continues to be the main concern that's expressed by everyone. With regards to schools, once again, the county's attendance numbers that are provided to us show continual decreases in attendance, and so therefore we don't need to proffer advancement for the school levels. I think that kind of covers most of the concerns. I think to wrap up everything, it sounds like the connection to Britway seems to be the biggest point of contention. However, there's 4 or 5 factors that come into play in us connecting to that road, and that's not just the county's master plan that's adopted and goes through public process with citizen input, but also the arterial preservation plan, the established recorded plat that shows the connection prior to the new homes being built in 2009 on that roadway, as well as the input that we've received from Public Works and VDOT. So I think that's kind of where we're all concluding here tonight. And if you all would like to hear from VDOT, I welcome that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Dunn, have left?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that being said, been a request for a 5-minute recess, so we'll, if nobody objects, we'll take 5 minutes.
during COVID?
You know, regulations change.
All right, I'd like to return from break. All right, we've heard the project, we've heard from the applicant and also the public, so what is the commission's prerogative? Discussion?
I have a question for Ms. Rainey. The site plan that was included in our packet from 2008, is that the only one that we have on file with the county?
Yes, that's the proffered concept plan.
Because the one that the applicant showed tonight from 2007, it does show an entryway.
It does, and
The one from 2008 that's with the county does not.
So you're talking about this one?
Yes.
I could not find this in our files, so I don't have this anywhere in our files. This is the first time I'm seeing it. So I'd have to go back through the agenda packages and look to see if this has been presented anywhere in any of the public meetings to verify.
Okay.
Let's follow up on that if we could, though, because the original proffer statement does discuss this as an emergency access, if I remember
Yes,
reading it
it
correctly.
does. It proffers an emergency access.
No, it doesn't. That's wrong.
I have the signed proffers. I can read it real quick.
I read them. That's not what this says.
I want to be clear on what it does say.
It's Article 3, Item B, on page 5. It says, "The applicant shall provide a right-of-way reservation sufficient for the county to construct a future connecting roadway from the private internal streets of the project to Britt Way in the adjacent residential subdivision to the south. Upon the county's request, the applicant shall deed the right-of-way for the connecting roadway to the county at no charge. Should the county so request, the applicant shall provide an easement to the county to construct an emergency vehicle access to the adjacent Carrollton Fire Station."
Thank you for clarifying that.
And Article D does say that the landscape buffer will extend from the Carrollton Fire Station property line west to the Brittway cul-de-sac. So that would lead me to believe that this was an emergency access point. Is that, so that's how you...
So the buffer is the landscaping buffer, and of course, when you have emergency access points, you would leave that space open, probably put a gate with a lockbox or something on it typically.
I got a question for Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
If this development was allowed a right-in, right-out only on Route 17, how would that affect Archer Mead across the street that was going to have a crossover with a stoplight?
I believe Archer's Mead has abandoned their right to have a crossover.
Yes.
So they're going to be right-in, right-out as well?
Yes, and that changed in 2022.
Okay.
They actually proffered to close the median rate.
Shren, could you provide additional clarity on the challenges to connect this to Deep Bottom? I'm not sure.
Certainly.
Thank you.
So between 2008 and 2021, when VDOT did the Route 17 arterial preservation study, some conditions have changed. So as part of that arterial study, preservation study, there was a lot of access management concepts in it, and there were several different scenarios to be able to better handle traffic flow through that area. And one of the preferred scenario that VDOT preferred based on cost and best design concept was what they called hold on, I wrote it down. A displaced left. So they had proposed displaced lefts going northbound on 17 onto Brewers Neck Boulevard that would necessarily cut into where Deep Bottom Road exits onto 17 in that particular area. So their proposal was to do a future closure of Deep Bottom Way at that end. So that would necessarily limit the practicality of an exit using Deep Bottom Road as an exit to go northbound on Route 17 unless you came out on Brewers Neck and went to the light that way.
That was a study that is that currently approved, or does it still remain a study?
So it was approved by VDOT and it was presented to the Board of Supervisors in 2022 and it was accepted by the board. And we take it under advisement when we're looking at future development in the area. And when these traffic impact analyses are presented by applicants, they come into our office, we send that out to VDOT for their analysis and review. And they review the assumptions and the numbers and the model runs that the applicants do or perform for the study and make sure they're consistent with accepted engineering principles and standards. And they find them acceptable or they issue comments. And so they did have a few comments which the applicant subsequently addressed in their last letter to us for this last traffic impact analysis. That's part of your agenda package, is that they had no further comments.
How does the traffic impact analysis affect the already approved plan?
So the already approved plan, they could pursue the existing plan by right by just submission of a preliminary plat, construction plans, and a final plat. So they could pursue a full access onto Route 17. They would have to go through VDOT for that. They could have an access on the Deep Bottom Way and keep their emergency access on Brittway. So there are new standards that VDOT has since 2008, obviously, where they do require that second access for a development that I believe has over 60 residential units on a public street right away.
But that wouldn't affect the already approved plan?
No.
One question on the traffic impact. I heard that there's, I guess it may include removal of a traffic light at Ashby. Is that still something being considered, or how would that be?
So that's the Route 17 arterial preservation plan that VDOT recommends as one of their traffic flow facilitators, is to remove the light and put in some alternative intersections in its place, which may or may not involve the use of U-turns along Route 17.
I don't know the likelihood of that happening, but that hasn't been considered at all, it looks like in the state.
No, not in this plan and not in the county's immediate future plans. No, not at all.
What do you think the likelihood of that happening? Because I'm concerned about that as well. It's also lights like at Cedar Grove Road being removed.
Right. At this point, I don't see it happening in the next 20, 30 years, but
So, just so I can get some clarity, VDOT says there has to be a secondary entrance point, and that's because they will not allow a light at that entrance?
so in order to have the light there, they have to meet traffic signal warrant analysis. And so if their studies can show that they need a traffic light there, then VDOT can consider it at that time. But that would go against the proposed Route 17 arterial plan that VDOT's come up with since then. So they, as a way to fix or mitigate the traffic, they proposed the second entrance on Brittway and the right in, right out only on Route 17. When I talked to VDOT last, I said, what about the possibility of closing and making it a condominium association, private streets? They close and make an emergency access only on Brittway, and they would have to run the scenarios all over again because now all your northbound turns coming out of the new development would have to do U-turns on Route 17. And that would affect the level of service on 17 as well, so.
So I guess one other comment about the traffic study. To me, it looks like it's just based on number of daily trips. And there's other factors that should be considered, I think, such as the type of roads, how the roads are used, vehicles parked on the side of the road, sidewalks, no sidewalks, children activity. There's other hazards should be considered, I think, in a study like that. So I don't consider the study to be complete.
I have 3 points that I would like to see addressed, and if I had to make a motion right now, it would certainly be to table this, but I have concerns with the school's comments, because at one point, we talked about this pushing West Side over capacity, and I think these students go to West Side for probably 5th and 6th grade. So I think that proffer statement does possibly play into that, and Mr. Riddick brought that up. I have concerns with VDOT. But I think my greatest concern right now is the clarity of Britt Way, and I'm not sure I'm clear. I hear what Mr. Riddick's saying, and I also hear, no disrespect, what you're saying, Ms. Ring. It seems to me Britt Way is accessible through either development. If they were to get, I think I absolutely know I need clarity from Mr. Jones at some point as to whether the existing development can go through Britt Way, because that's what I think I hear.
We can review.
We can talk, clarify, confirm that with VDOT, since the future reservation is there.
Another thing, that the letter we got from the school says we will provide a more detailed response prior to Tuesday's meeting. Did we receive an update?
No.
I'd like to see that as well.
I've actually reached out to Ms. Briggs twice on this and have not received a response.
And I would like some clarity from VDOT in regards to if they would be open to an alternative light there. I understand that, what their last study is showing, and it's interesting that we're moving away from traffic signals. I don't know what that's going to look like. I do travel that road quite a bit. I'm just praying we don't get roundabouts, but I think I'd like to have some clarity or a ruling on them, if that would even be an option.
People can't turn left on flashing yellows. I can't imagine what U-turns would bring.
Yeah, I agree.
And VDOT wants to close that median, is that part of their?
So in order to avoid conflicts with left-hand turns for Archer's Mead, when they came back through their conditional zoning amendment, in order to make that work from a VDOT standpoint, to be able to convert their full access to a right-in, right-out only entrance, they proffered to close the median break to keep people from trying to turn left into a right-in, right-out.
But they still have an entrance or an exit on Channel Way, correct?
Yes, they do. They have a secondary access on Channel Way.
And so, as the developer alluded to, that, if this isn't passed, they could always go back to the original plan. What would be the chances that that original plan would have to use deep bottom?
So they have a proffered condition, a proffered master plan that shows a connection to deep bottom.
So they'd have to follow through on that.
Yes.
With 2 entrances on 17.
They could put in secondary. I don't think there's anything that mandates that they have those 2 entrances on 17.
But the original plan showed 2, correct?
The proffered the proffered concept plan that I have attached to the approval is a,
Showed 2, didn't it?
One for the commercial.
one
and the other
entrance. But like I said, I'll go back and double check our records, but this was the only concept that was in the file. There is actually maybe a small commercial
Commercial and
entrance
a
there.
residential or something.
And they may also very well have an entrance through Britt Way as well.
Right.
But if you've got 3 other access points, then that hopefully would alleviate the Britt Way.
But it's approved. They could do that. If it's not emergency use only, they can develop it using that.
The proffered conditions reference this plan.
Ms. Kelly, I think you bring a good point. I'd like more information on that as well. Knowing that the existing non-reduced condition has an exit and entrance on deep bottom, and this one doesn't have the capability of having that, is like a sense of confusion for me why it wouldn't be feasible here, but in that build scenario it was. I understand there's been some changes with the wetlands, but understanding really what those challenges are, and if there is action that could, make that an alternate plan, and if they would be interested in doing that, it's kind of where I'm thinking. I also think there's a lot of good about this potential development, though, too. The reduction in size is something that's been expressed as a desire by the public, and that's a good trait of this one. Has a reduction in commercial, which I think could go either ways, but that does also reduce traffic, and traffic is one of the highest concerns in the area too. So there's a lot of good things that are about this development. My concern is mostly related to the Britway. I think that there is more information necessary on that.
Well, I do believe that, clarity on a number of fronts here. We need to definitely drill down into those areas that are gray, because there are some gray areas here. Out of respect for time and everything, Mr. Chair, if I'm in time, I would like to propose a motion that we will table this until that the parties can come back to the county or come together, get more information from the school system, get more information from VDOT to see if we can pin them down with, some specificity regarding what is allowed, what is not allowed. Because, the thing about it is, we're at an impasse where if this doesn't get approved, or, they could go back and do what was, approved in 2008. So I would suggest that we table this until we can get this additional information, looking at those alternatives to perhaps what is actually presented, or what we think, if that's the, if there's a fail-safe plan that, another route in, no pun intended, or another route in, another route out, to see what we could do. So I do move that we would table this until we can get this additional information.
Second.
Ms. Manor, roll call, please.
Jennifer Boykin?
Yes.
Thomas DeStefano?
Yes.
James Ford?
Yes.
George Rawls?
Yes.
Matthew Smith?
Yes.
Keith Johnson?
Yes.
Brian Carroll?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
And I do have a question for staff. Is there any way to do an updated traffic study? Because the fact that they did a traffic study in 21 and 22, when people were still working remotely due to COVID and stuff, that...
Bridgepoint's updated one was March of this year, so Bridgepoint's current.
Okay.
The Route 17 arterial master plan is just that, it's a massive state undertaking, so there's no way to request it.
So before we move on to the next item, I want to just make it clear to the public that this was the public hearing. So because we are tabling this, there will not be a public hearing next time. And so the best way for your voice will be heard will be through email or through calling your local planning commissioner or board supervisor.
And still showing up at the
Still
next
show up.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, we still have
I'll wait for it to tone down some.
Possibly, yep, I didn't think about that.
It's hot in here. Yes, it is hot in here.
I love it. Feels good to me.
Are they exiting or are they loitering? Are they exiting or are they loitering?
They're going down the steps, they're just log jammed.
It's gonna be totally inappropriate, I'm gonna get fired. She said, okay, Mr. Smith, I'll put some more on.
That's funny.
Said Caleb
I
back
just
there.
party out at the office and now they got a heater.
Had to be the sergeant
Ran that
armed.
thing in the summertime too.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the two public hearings we had planned for this evening on the agenda. Next we'll move on to old business. I'm showing no old business. Next item on the agenda is new business for the Go Car Wash.
I remove it from my screen.
Sign exception request for signs installed at Go Car Wash as shown on the sign design schematic dated July 11th, 2023, located at 14237 Lorian Way, Carrollton, on property with tax map number 3401070F in the conditional general commercial zoning district.
Good evening. Sandy Robinson, reporting on the Go Car Wash sign exception application. This property is known as tax map number 3401070F. It is located at 14237 Lorian Way. The current zoning is conditional general commercial. The election district is D2. And this request is an exception to allow installed signs as shown on the sign design schematic. The applicant applied for sign zoning and building permits on August the 20th, 2024. The planner reviewed zoning and rejected the application on August the 23rd, 2024, noting the following deficiencies. This is at the first preliminary review of the application. The monument sign did not show a setback to Lorian Way. The monument sign exceeded the maximum height requirement of 6 feet. The sign face was not a neutral color and did not meet the construction material standards. And the wall sign, one wall sign is allowed per road frontage. So the road sign on the east side and the south sides of the building seem to be problematic, and the sign on Route 17, the wall sign on the east side and the south sides were fine because they were facing Lorian Way. The sign facing 17, which is the west side of the building, was not allowed because it didn't have public road frontage. No further communication received from the applicant following the projection. Zoning and building permits were issued, however, on August 26, 2024, in error despite of the plan's rejection. Staff noticed these signs after they were installed on March 2025, and upon investigation, it was discovered that the zoning permit was issued in error. The applicant stated that he was not aware of the rejection, and he assumed that his permit was valid. The applicant was advised that the signs had to be removed or an exception would be necessary because staff does not have the authority to go through that administrative procedure to allow it. The exception of superior signs was for 3 wall signs and 1 monument sign. These signs did not meet the requirements of 900116B, 900116C of the zoning ordinance. Exceptions for the installed signs are being requested as follows. There is one 9.6 square foot channel letters on the wall sign and a 19.6 square foot logo on the wall sign that's on the west side, which is facing 17. It totals 99.2 square feet. It faces the 17, but there's a stormwater property in front of this, so it is not actually fronting on 17. There is one monument sign that is 25 square feet and 8 feet in height, with a proposed setback of 7 feet off of Lorian Way. The sign colors are mostly black and orange, aside from the sign business logo, which are not subtle or tone neutral as required by the ordinance. The sign itself does not match the colors, materials, or designs all submitted to the county. And the sign is constructed out of aluminum, acrylic, instead of masonry, wood, high density, or composite panels made from natural recycled materials, which is a design standard in the ordinance. This is the site on Carrollton Boulevard. It's behind the B&P there. You turn into Lorianne Way, and that's where you enter the Go Car Wash, and Lorianne Way wraps around to the east side. This is the package material that the planner, which was me, received. He's showing the elevations on the west side, which is 17. Then we have the east side elevation, which is opposite. There's a logo sign there, and the channel signs are on the west side. There's also on the, I can't read this that well, I'm sorry, south elevation, I know it, but I can't read it. On the south side, there's also a logo. This is a blow-up of the sign that was reviewed, that is 25 square feet. That's 7 feet off the right-of-way, and it's 8 feet in height. The criteria for granting an exception is outlined in the following criteria. Such exception shall create no greater impact to the residents or occupants of the development as well as a neighboring property than that would be obtained under the applicable regulation. Such an exception is reasonable because of the high level of design and construction that will be incorporated in the development, and such exception will result in design and construction that is in accordance with accepted engineering and building standards. The analysis by staff is that we have strengths and weaknesses. The strength, staff has discussed taking into consideration that the channel letters and logo on the west side of the structure, which faces Carrollton Boulevard, even though it doesn't front on Carrollton Boulevard, is reasonable if you understand the definition of the ordinance and you apply it as facing that highway. The weaknesses are that the monument sign exceeds the height requirement. The monument sign does not meet the setback. And the freestanding sign also does not meet the construction standards in the ordinance. And even though it was submitted and ultimately approved by the county in error following the planner's rejection, the freestanding sign is not consistent with the sign that is there that was actually presented in the staff package for review. Based on the weaknesses listed above, staff recommends denial of the exception request for the freestanding sign and approval of the exception request for the wall sign on the west side of the building, since it is facing Route 17. The gentleman is here if you have any questions of him that I can't answer.
Thank you. Commissioner, have any questions for staff?
I have a question for staff. Was all of this done like online under the new system? Because I'm wondering how the rejection was missed. Was that a
Can't answer
glitch in the
that.
system or?
No, there was no glitch.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
No permits were issued.
Did the same person, the applicant, I don't know if it was Superior Signs or the owner of Go
Superior
Car Wash,
Signs.
who got the rejection and who got the approval? Did the same person get both?
The rejection, Superior Signs said that they did not get the rejection. That's why they proceeded. And they didn't get the rejection, and staff did not see the rejection
When they issued the permit.
when they issued the permit. Now, I called, when this came up, when we saw the signs actually go up, I called the gentleman and spoke with him about it, and he was a little flustered and confused, as was I, so it was a mistake. We did look at several things. The exception, the freestanding sign doesn't meet the ordinance. The other signs do. When we took in consideration the west side, none of the signs are too large. The logos are fine, the colors are fine, but the freestanding sign, this, that is what was in the package that was approved by building and someone other than myself, but that's not the sign that's there.
Yeah, the sign, the picture has a black bottom on it, it's different colors, right?
It's more like I looked it up online, and you would be surprised how many oranges there are and how many burnt oranges there are.
Sure.
So, I think I have a copy of some pictures in your package. And even that, sometimes when you print something, it doesn't do the color justice, but,
You just need to go see.
it's not, yeah, it's a little.
I'm saying,
It's a little bright and it's almost a little red.
I looked
In
at-
our interpretation, however,
Right.
it wouldn't have been permitted,
Are the dimensions the same?
yes. It's my understanding that they are the same.
Yeah, for some reason, Saturday, when I looked at it closer, I said, is something not right about this?
But there were a lot of questions up front in the initial review. That's why I made a brief memo in the comments of denial. Since then, I have confirmed that everything is in compliance, but that detached sign, and it doesn't meet this, and we wouldn't have approved this, so it's complicated.
Yeah, but it was a mistake made somewhere, and we're not sure where
So
that
how do we
was.
make sure this doesn't happen again? Do we know what happened, actually? I mean, where was the miscommunication?
I don't know.
I'm just saying, you can't, mistakes happen,
Yeah.
and it may happen again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
This will be
we hope it won't happen again, but,
If we put a process in place to, where I assign, make staff assignments for signs, and if I see something that is blatantly doesn't meet the ordinance, I just reject it. It doesn't ever come to the plan.
No, we've done that.
So looking at that, the bottom of the sign where the numerics are is more of a tan color, and what they have here is black.
Correct.
I haven't been out there to look at the orange, but I think that would maybe make it more subdued if that was a possibility, just to change that black. I don't.
We would have permitted this sign if the sign was the color of the base. Tell me if I'm wrong, because we've been back and forth with this.
Okay.
We would approve this sign if it was further from the road, because it's too large and it's too tall. So it would have had to be 15 feet off the right-of-way or smaller, for example. We would approve the sign being the beige color with the numbers on it, that was fine. And then if the
The background of the sign, the
Background.
majority is neutral white.
Yeah.
You can have a colored logo, that's
The color
typically
logo
how
would
we
be fine,
handled
yeah.
it in the NDSO
Mhm.
district. That's particularly critical here because it's part of the Crossings development, which has those
standards.
Standards as well for that neighborhood, for that.
The problem with the setback here, if we just set it back 15 foot, he'd be in the exit from the car wash,
Well,
where
you
the sign would be.
You could set it as close as 5 feet if you were, and this is 7, if you were no larger than 16 square feet.
Oh, okay.
So your setback,
scale.
and the smaller the sign, the closer it can be to the right of way. That's where he's end up, and it seems to be the fairest thing we've had in a while. That makes sense. The further back, the bigger it can be.
Yes, yeah.
But no signs can be any taller than 6 unless they're 35 feet from the right of way, and then they can be 8. So it was just,
And I'm just curious, when you sent the rejection out, did you do it electronically or
I
was?
don't send rejections out. They're sent out by,
Well, when she hits the rejection, the email goes out to the applicant, it's supposed to.
So it's done through email?
Yeah.
And there's no backup, like certified letter sent or anything?
No, it's just an initial plan review.
So what triggers that to have permit issued or not? I mean, if you reject it, does that trigger anything in permitting that says, oh, we can't issue a permit now or not?
It should have.
The building was approved, the building plans, these building plans were approved.
Right. But a separate sign company submitted these, is that what we're
They
saying?
all- The same gentleman did this, and he got a zoning and a building permit.
No, he's talking about the sign
The sign.
company submitted the plans for the signs.
Yeah, yeah, this is what they
Not the
submitted.
same.
It wasn't part of the original building plans,
No,
correct?
no, 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 no. We don't include signs.
Yeah,
with
that's what I was
building
trying to
plans
understand.
Because it's
Yeah.
too much.
Right. And I could see if you have a different applicant under a different name for the same property, I could see where that could be slipped and missed, yeah. If Superior Sign presented everything and you said yes, but then the applicant initially did the application, so you may have two different names.
Wasn't this case.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh, okay.
I'd like to go back to the color, and this is, some of this is new to me, so I got questions about that. There are other signs that have, or they're not earth tones or historic, like the Royal Farms is a bright blue.
And they submitted a blue that was in the historic Sherwin-Williams palette. So that's why we let that.
This was not historic burnt orange, okay.
Just a general burnt orange. There was no specific color swatch or anything included with it.
To me, the color's fine.
But there's a number. There's a number, and if you look under burnt orange with that number, there's a whole array of burnt orange colors that aren't that, don't look like that.
Anyway, it would have garnered more attention to
Yeah.
figuring out exactly
That
what
wouldn't be
it
allowed,
was.
period, yeah.
But there's other signs in the area that have, like Bojangles, maybe that was older.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's yellow and, bright yellow and red. and
Yes.
The color doesn't concern me. That's just,
And is the color scheme just for that location, for that whole area?
Right.
Or is that,
Development service overlay, any new signs.
so, because you got the Major League building people across the street with their bright,
That's not a good example.
anything being done for them? I mean,
No, we were
they're,
supposed to do with the ordinance, remember?
yeah, okay.
Amy, so some years ago, was there a waiver granted for a tropical smoothie sign?
Wasn't.
So tropical smoothie, as I recall, because there was a big tussle over that one as well. And at that point, it was decided they could have the colorful logo,
Right.
but that the background or foreground of the sign had to be neutral or earth tone. And because it was a sign, channel letters on a neutral background, it was.
No, it was home.
This would be a very expensive mistake for the developer to fix, I would
Yes.
think.
Sign company.
Sign company, right.
Is there any way to at least paint the black part tan? Or,
Question for the sign person.
Can you help us answer a couple questions for changes that you could actually make, were being asked? I don't know if you could hear them well.
Sure, I'm Jeff Lay, I'm
Okay.
with Superior Signs. I went to work with my buddy, this was my second career, back in '06. It's never a good idea to build a sign without a permit.
Right.
They're on me all the time. I need work in the shop. My customer needs the stuff on the wall. And so they bang on me. Can I do it? Can I get this in production? It's never a good idea. If I told you yes, it's still never a good idea. This is why. Can't do anything else with it. It's done. We can do things cosmetically to it.
He's asking, that gentleman, the chairman's
Hi.
asking you. Yes,
We
sir.
can do things to the sign. We're a custom sign manufacturer. We can pull it up, rip it up, cut it down, repaint it, do all sorts of things. The more things we do, the greater the bite that goes into the thing that we try to avoid. That's lost. Yeah, I mean, we can do anything.
I think the question was the sign that's there now, the base is black. Is that fixable?
Sure.
I think is what they're asking.
But on-site fixable, where you don't have
Sure.
to take it away and do some
Sure.
things with that,
Yeah.
to eliminate more cost.
Pardon?
To eliminate more cost, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing easy. Another thing, I'll just throw out for the sake of conversation. It'd be helpful if the industry knew what the color standards were in the county. Subtle, neutral, they don't really cut it. I mean, when people start specifying colors of signage, and I'm saying this because we work in the Mid-Atlantic, I go all over everywhere. So I've got a pretty good overview of what's happening. And they usually peg it to Williamsburg Collection, Benjamin Moore paints, or a color palette. And they expand on PMS, whether it's going to be gloss or whether it's going to be, earth tone or, I forgot the term.
Matte.
Matte, that's it. At any rate, we can do lots of things. That's about, I mean, when you're talking about repainting, changing colors, that's about the only thing that can be done on site without jerking the sign up out the ground.
I'd like to see if staff and the gentleman could come up with a relatively cost-effective way to at least address color palette and that type of thing. And, mistakes happen. And let's just see if that would be an effective way to kind of come to a happy medium on that.
Has there been any complaints from the public about the sign?
Not from the public.
So, Joe, any recommendations regarding establishing a precedent?
Would not establish a precedent. Each case rises and falls on its own merits. Again, and I hope we don't have many cases where the part of it is a mistake on staff's part.
I think that's a pretty fair job, to establish the color palette and mitigate it as much as possible without being too excessive in the demands.
So are you saying that you want them to come to an agreement on the orange also, or?
Just the black.
Because, I mean, I'm willing to make a motion that they just change, we give the exception request on the condition that they paint the black part to the tan, to a tan neutral, or neutral color.
I just wanted to look at the other signs that they have in the building.
So staff, my question, Ms. Sandy, is, did you or other members have a remedy for this?
Ms. Ring spoke to that a couple minutes ago, how she has, since this has happened, she has redesigned the way signs come in, that she looks at them first before they go to,
No, I heard that.
Okay.
I'm talking about a remedy in terms of this particular situation and how we can correct what's present. That's what I'm talking about. Whether we change the color or whether we, because we don't want to have them knock it down or anything like that, or, move it back. That's what I'm talking about in terms of remedying the existing.
From staff's standpoint, just me looking at the zoning ordinance, there's only so much you can do with a sign that's too close to the road, too tall, and the wrong colors.
Okay, so no. Okay, yeah, that's all I needed to hear, Jeez. So if we paint the,
You can paint it and make it consistent with what was originally submitted.
Okay.
Because another issue is that what was built out there does not match this. even though this was approved in error.
And that's with respect to color, but dimensions do match,
And
correct?
materials.
And materials.
But what about the setbacks?
It's too close. I mean, that was one of the rejection comments, was that it
Right.
was it was too close to the river. Too tall, too close, too tall, too close.
Mr. Mayor, I may have missed that part. This specifies the materials that sign was supposed to be.
Yeah, so up here, it says HDO, dimensional faces. So that's the high density urethane, I think is what it's short
Yeah.
for. And this is, his signs out there now are acrylic and aluminum.
So this is what Superior Signs said they were gonna use, but then they didn't. Okay. Gotcha. That's a little bit different.
So this is what you submitted, and it shows HDU.
No, that's always been aluminum and acrylic. We don't do HDU in-house. We farm that out because it's a specialized process.
So what does HDU dimensional faces mean on your sketch?
Sorry?
On your specifications? Look in the right-hand corner. I'll see it better right here. But it says in the right-hand corner, yeah, HDU.
I stand corrected. I'm so sorry. This is incorrect. No, we don't do that in-house. In this shop, when this side is built in-house.
Do you do HDU signs?
They form, they
We
contract it
can
out.
supply HDU signs.
Okay, so you can contract it out then?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't even meet the parameters of what the scale was, the material, and I was trying to give a workaround on color, but if it's not to the dimension that they submitted, and it's not to the materials that they had submitted, you know, I could have worked around the color and the setback before, but I think at this point,
And if we're already having problems with another business across the street, if we approve this, then we would almost have to approve that.
If he came in for an exception for his trailer signs.
That's totally different. That's a
Oh, trailer,
difference in
okay,
there. They're like
okay.
15-foot wide, 20-foot high.
What was submitted, does that specify the location that curling is, or is that also different than?
He verified to me that the size, height and size and setback, as I said, 25 square feet was submitted in that, what he said he put 8 foot instead of 6 foot. And then the color, the orange looks different, but you put it through a copy machine, you take a picture, I don't know. I compared the number of the color with palettes online, and they range differently. The sign base is black. What's the top?
The top's black.
Ms.
Black.
Robinson,
The black is not allowed.
the question was, is the dimension of the sign that was submitted the dimension of the sign that was built?
Yes.
Is the location of the sign 7-foot setback? Is that what was submitted as
Yes.
7? So,
Yes.
well, the only thing that's different in this case is perhaps the colors.
Yes.
I don't know which orange is which, but the
Yeah.
black is certainly different, and it's not the HDU material.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And what's the reason that we're against the aluminum?
It's not specified. I mean, our ordinance is very specific on what materials the signs can be made out of. And if it's not in that list, then it's not permitted.
So I kind of go back to why. I mean, is there, like, does somebody hate aluminum or?
The NDSO illuminative to be more of a modern look to it, whereas the Newport Development Service Overlay District Standard, and I wasn't there in 2005 when they came up with this, but I can only conjecture that because the rest of the ordinance is very specific and describes buildings and color palettes and materials being of historic character and reflecting the community character, and it should simulate wood, then that's where I believe that the material list came from.
Is this a franchise, do we know?
Yes.
That would be my only concern, is that when you're trying to get a business to come in that's a franchise, and you go to change their colors of their, franchise sign.
We do it all the time.
Do we?
They're used to most franchises like McDonald's, even Taco Bell and Hardee's have different materials and design based on what a community's ordinance requirements are.
Especially in Williamsburg.
Yeah, I can understand.
Look at it over there.
I mean, Go Car Wash, the building itself,
Right.
adhere to our ordinance requirements.
The reason I was asking about dimensions, color, and specifically what was built compared to what was submitted, I think makes a lot of sense to grant the exception for a mistake that was made and to rectify that. But also, there's an expectation for the details that were submitted is also what was built. That's kind of where I was headed with that.
I agree.
So, and I will defer to council. If we were to accept approve the exception, second, third order effects, what would that do?
As I said, from the standpoint of setting some sort of precedent, you're not. You're looking at this
Case by
particular
case, yeah.
case by case, so I don't think that happens. And staff has recommended, that everything but the monument sign, that the exceptions be granted. The roof, wall sign, roof sign, whatever you want to call it. Again, the reason is, if the property fronted on 17, they wouldn't even be asking for it. There's a stormwater pond that they don't own between them, but nothing's going to be built between them and 17. So that's staff's basis for that. That's not an issue. With this, the issue is, as Ms. Ring has set forth, if you take everything aside from say, they can build, we grant the exception for what they have submitted, but what they built is not what they submitted. I don't know what it takes to change the face of a sign, but that's, they said they were going to meet Ms. Ring is more adroit at this than I am, but if it had been the HDU, that would have been a material that was acceptable in the NDCO, so that issue goes away, and then it's really just what we've been talking about. So I think that is the issue. I mean, you're granting an exception for the errors made by staff and the applicant is one thing. Granting an exception for a wholly self-induced wound by not building what you submitted is something else.
Gotcha. That's why I asked you.
And so when it says HDU dimensional faces, can you help me understand which parts that HDU would apply to based on that? Is that the entire box, or is that just a circle, or which portions would that imply?
The box. Oh, he's the expert.
Sure. I'm going to hang out there in case you have any more
The
questions.
reason this surprised me so much is that on an HDU sign, you can't have a center mount pole. There is no steel in the center. It's got to be a saddle. It's got to rest on top, or it's got to be like a post and panel sign. The material won't stand the stress of a center mount. So That's why it surprised me so much. And I'll be having a chat with our designers, and I guess I'll need to have a chat with myself when I turn this stuff in, to make sure that I catch things that don't make sense before they leave my desk.
So you couldn't reface the sign with an HDD?
Oh, no, not that. You have to get the pole out of the way. The easiest way to do it in that case and keep it anywhere close to where it is now would be do like a dual post and panel with the HD in the center. And again, it gets back to getting it straight up front. Anyway, that's the nuts and bolts.
Mr. Chairman, just a thought, and I don't know where this body's gonna go or where the Board of Supervisors is gonna go, but if the face needs to be modified to the correct material, I don't know what would be entailed to have it reduced to 6 feet instead of 8 and bring it almost completely into compliance. If you gotta redo the faces, and that's a. So at that point, there may not be an exception needed, you know, it remedies itself. If that's what this, you know, you grant the exception for the HD, if provided that they change the faces out. So if they're gonna change the faces out, reduce it to 6 foot, and there is no exception needed.
And is the exception still needed for
The size would have to go down to 16, yes.
Well, I mean, if you reduce it to 6 foot, I think don't you?
No, it'd have to go down to 16 square feet instead of 25. There's 3 things.
So then all three things come into play?
Yeah, yes. Your setback and the size and the height dictate each other.
I'm just going to say that from my perspective, and Mr. Smith had an idea that if you, instead of painting the black part a neutral color, paint it the same color as that,
As the
like,
building.
as the building, that yellowish, what I would call a yellowish color. I would not have a problem granting the exception if he were willing to paint the black the same color as the building, or neutral color.
Yeah, I went and toured the sign over the weekend. I didn't find the sign offensive personally. So my concern is just maintaining as close to regulation as we possibly can.
Sure. I didn't find it offensive. I just, when I looked at it, I said it doesn't match. I mean, you know, I knew, I said, something's not right there. And not that it offended me, you know, but, I mean, it is what it is, what, you know, the ordinance says. And I guess we are falling short of saying, where does this responsibility for this, this mishap lie?
I think it lies on both parties.
It does.
So I think this is a good compromise to,
You right the wrong as much as possible.
Both sides. On both sides. Yeah. So.
I'll make a motion. Are we done? Okay.
We are. I got one mission with query too. So that, we talked a lot about the monument. Do the signs that are on the 3 sides of the building require an exception, or have they been rolled out from needing exceptions?
They're fine.
Okay, so it's only about the monument.
Good.
We can't let her sign on the west side, because it doesn't, that property doesn't have road frontage technically. It faces the road, there's stormwater pond there, nothing can go there. So staff felt like that was good for an exception, to grant the exception to that.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Boykin.
Oh, no problem. I'll make a motion that we approve the waiver if the black is painted the same color as the building, that cream color. Or you want the top to be green? Oh, Mr. Smith would like the top part to be green. and the bottom part to be the color of the building.
I'd second that.
Is that detail enough for a recommendation to go into the board?
I believe it is.
Okay. All right, we have a motion, it's been seconded.
Jennifer Boykin,
Yes.
Thomas Stefano,
Yes.
James Ford,
Yes.
George Rawls,
Yes.
Matthew Smith,
Yes.
Dave Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Carroll.
Yes.
Motion.
Okay. There's no other new business this evening. Moving on to county attorney's report.
Yes, sir. Just briefly, and it came up during a portion of our meeting with Mr. Riddick talking about school proffers. I gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors about proffers just because there's been some questions raised through a lot of comments from people about, as you heard, about schools, or they don't believe traffic studies or whatnot. For residential proffers, for new residential development, and in this case, it's already approved, but they are bringing in a new application for residential development. The state code pretty much drives the proffer issue. Virginia is a Dillon rule state, which means the county only can do what the state says we can do. So we have a state code, it's 15.22303.4, that discusses off-street proffers in residential developments. Again, there are lots of proffers that are made. We had a commercial development recently, the warehouse project, where berms and sound studies and certain light patterns, those are all addressing factors on site that mitigate impacts that are addressed. We can still do that in residential developments, but Ms. Ring and I often send proffers back because people are proffering an item that's in our code, that they say they're going to do something that they're already required to do, which is unnecessary. Again, they will address that. Now, in this case, you saw renderings of the buildings. Well, that's because they're doing a master plan, which is part of their zoning process. But someone may come in and just say, we proffer that we're going to use the highest grade shingle. Well, that has nothing to do with the impacts of a development. That would be improper, and we would address that during the staff portion of it. But what is required of the applicants when they come in for these developments is they are to conduct a traffic impact analysis. And that's at their expense. It's submitted to us. We send it to our transportation people. We send it to VDOT, and they review it. Often those traffic impact studies, before it ever reaches the planning commission, are returned as being deficient. They didn't take into account an intersection one block up or something of that nature. They just did not conduct a proper study. That came up in the Sweetgrass issue, where they were focusing at the Benz Grand intersection, which was not the problem area. It was Turner Drive, those type of things. But it is the folks that are doing the work, VDOT, the engineers that address those studies to do the best they can to determine that the studies themselves are adequate. They have to do a financial impact study, which is reviewed. We ask the EMS, the Sheriff's Department, to look at this. And as individuals, we might say, well, how is this 500 home development not going to create additional impacts for the fire service? They say that they can do that, and that is where we have to rely on. With schools, there are two types of capacity issues with schools. One is just the physical facility itself, the building. Can you put another child in a desk there, or are they over capacity? And that is not some just random number in the sky. The school was designed to hold so many children. And the fact that the schools make do by shifting, well, we're going to put 8th graders in the middle school instead of the high school. we're going to redistrict the schools and these kids are now going to go to Windsor. Those are not, those are issues that if the school says we can make do with the facilities that we have, that is the determining factor. There's also an operational capacity, and that is not just your normal classroom saying that this school's got more than this, we need more classrooms. That's a facility. But I will use like the trades school that Smithfield High School has established. If they came forward and said, we have specialized classrooms where we're teaching welding, or we've got a specialized kitchen where we are teaching culinary skills, and we have more students than we can house, that may be an item that could be covered by proffers if the school puts it in their capital improvement request, it's in their plan, and they are actually constructing something. It's not just a simple remodel, it's an actual expansion of that project. Again, that's all up to the schools. As of right now, based on their September enrollment, which is the numbers that the schools have given us on this most current project, they say there are no impacts across the board. And if that's the case, we cannot legally accept a cash proffer, even if the developer offered it, because the code says it's only applicable if the project pushes the school over its existing capacity at the time of the application, the time of this hearing. In 2019, there was a proposed amendment to the state code that would have added the language that existing capacity is considered to be the existing capacity, including approved but not yet developed projects, and that failed. So it is clear that if the schools have room for 99 students, they say our capacity is, we've got 99 empty seats, and a project comes in with 100 kids, they proffer for one child. If the next project comes in, that project never gets built, or it doesn't get built timely, and the next project comes in the exact same scenario, they proffer for one child. It doesn't make sense, but that is the law. Additionally, they attempted in 2019 to add items to what could be recovered through proffers, capital items such as school buses, fire trucks, furniture, and other capital expenses that would go into building a new school, building a new firehouse, and it got denied. It did not pass. And so capital for fire stations means adding additional capacity. We just had a discussion. They are doing fairly significant renovations, or planning to, at Carrollton, to enhance the bunk rooms to allow people to staff it more fully, I guess is the right term. That doesn't qualify. They did not change the capacity of that building. The state law would look at it no different than saying, well, you could have put bunk beds instead of twin beds. And in the course of this, we can certainly, as staff, as an individual commission board member, have a discussion with a developer to express a concern about a potential impact. But the potential impact, if the schools say there's no impact, there's no need to have that discussion about schools with a developer. But if there's, we can go back to the commercial application, concerns about noise, potential setbacks, if it's, they can certainly always, if there's a concern about impacts to an adjoining neighborhood, a developer can say, well, the setbacks are 35 feet, we're going to make them 100. For the practical aspect of proffers, if we suggest or accept an illegal proffer, and the developer complains about it, his project gets denied. We said, you need to proffer for schools, and they say, well, there is no impact, and it gets denied. Doesn't mean you can't deny it on other grounds, sound zoning, land planning use. But if it's denied, and one of the allegations is they've requested an improper proffer, the remedy is the court will order that the project be approved without the proffer. I mean, it's a pretty harsh penalty but we haven't done that. I mean, that's just not been our practice. We've been very conservative in our approach with this. But that's the problem. The way the process should work and has worked is we identify through public hearing, like we did today, what the potential impacts of the development are. We have to allow the developer to know what those impacts are. Now, they do with the traffic studies and those things, but they heard other impacts tonight. And they may be able to I don't know what it could be, but they could come up with a solution that still involves Britt Way, but has some other means. But they learn of the impacts. They then voluntarily proffer something. Whether it's adequate or not is your decision, but it's their right to proffer or not proffer anything that they believe in. I mean, VDOT could say, you need to put in a taper, and they say, we're not doing that. Well, that's fine, that's their choice, but they run the risk of having their project denied. But we can't say, we can't say to them, put in the turn lane, put in the stoplight, or else. That's not how proffers work. And there's been some confusion. I'm probably preaching to the audience more than I am to y'all. But that's where we are. And it's confusing to say, well, how can you have 5 developments, all that have 100 children coming in, and you say there are no impacts to school? Because the General Assembly said that's how we have to look at it.
Jones, I have some questions on that. I guess 2 separate lines of thought. One, we'll talk about school proffers in a moment, because I don't really think that was, while it was touched here, it's being reduced, that wasn't like the most common theme tonight. Tonight was about the Britt Way or Deep Bottom Road. And so those are road proffers in the way that they're doing road developments for that, I believe, correct? Mm-hmm. And so that being the most common concern that we heard from the public tonight, and I think this board too, to get additional clarity on what the actual accesses previously were compared to what they will be under the new revision. If those aren't acceptable, do those road proffers fall under the same criteria, or is yours specific to off-site school proffers?
No, well, road proffers are the same. If they've conducted TIA and it says these are the proffers that you need to do to impact traffic. It's not impact traffic in a way that a neighborhood wants it. That is, that it meets VDOT standards. That doesn't mean that a project can be denied because it is impacting an adjoining property or properties in a manner that you don't think have been addressed. Now, I think it's true. I think that a lot of that has to do with going back, and Ms. Ring and I getting together and researching the 2008 rezoning, because there's a big difference between a zoning that's already approved that has access through multiple ways, or they're asking for something new. There is a difference between emergency access and now we're going to just have access. But if there was an originally approved access, you're not really changing anything. That's not I wouldn't find that to be a new impact. But Britt Way not being approved and coming through would be a new impact that it'd be up to the developer to figure out a way to address those impacts sufficient to your satisfaction, whatever that may be. But if they say, no, Britt Way is the way we're going to go, it's not that they didn't proffer something that was required or we asked for. It's what they proposed impacts other individuals to a fashion that you don't find acceptable. Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, in the case we heard tonight, when the proffer references a concept plan with a specific date, that's the only one that counts.
Right.
Not something that they pull out of their back pocket and they claim that it's from the project from 2008. And that's what I need to go research, is where that map came from.
Yeah, well,
It
that-
may indeed come from a county file, but I don't think it is.
Well, I mean, I was not so much concerned about the map as opposed to determining what was actually approved in 2008 by way of.
Right.
Yeah, that's really how I saw that one. Is there a new impact to the public within Ashby, and is it being offset adequately? And I don't think we had enough to decide on that. Okay, break and not attach that, but in general, because you said at the time of application, so this wouldn't impact that, I don't believe. But regarding school proffers, the upper limit, is that something that the school established, or is that set by regulation where they say they're at capacity?
Capacity is, I think the schools have an obligation to set a number that is below capacity that they need to make sure they're planning for, but capacity is whatever the school's capacity is. I don't know, I mean, I think that, I'm not sure where that number comes from. The buildings were designed to hold a certain
Right.
number of people, and.
So there's the building capacity, but there's also the programmatic capacity.
Right, but and the programmatic is
So it
more
doesn't
school-
matter if you have a special ed class in a room that could normally hold 30, if your program capacity says you can only have 15 kids in there, that's all you get, 15
Right.
kids.
But as far as when is that limit reached, is it 95% capacity, is it 90% capacity, where they then said, for the purpose of the proffer is, you've reached capacity, not 90. If the school needs to be planning at 90 or 95% to put something in their CIP, into the CIP, so they're planning. We have West Side in the CIP right now. But if they came forward and said, you just threw the high school over capacity, there's really not any proffers to be had if there's not a new high school plan. It doesn't mean they can't accept proffers. It doesn't mean you can't look at the project and go, you've created an impact that's causing issues, but but the reason that the 95% is probably appropriate is because if you approved a development today with 600 houses, there are not going to be 100 children standing in the parking lot at the school tomorrow. The school can probably be built long before the development is built out. I mean, it took, what, Ben's grant, 10 years to build out. Cypress Creek has been being built for 20 years now. So, I mean, there's a staggered approach. I mean, Sweetgrass proffered a limit of how many houses per year, so that part of it. But no, I think the real issue is, like I said, if they have a need that they can't put more kids in because of programs, then that is a capacity issue.
And that's, I think, the conversation that we probably ought to have with the schools, is to get more detailed on what the actual capacities are and when they're being threatened by those that, might be impacted. And that means, rather than just a statement saying, we can hold the capacity, like showing the numbers and getting more specific with it. But also, I say that knowing that this application came in when the school said they were satisfactory, and so at the time of application, the threat wasn't there. This is going forward.
And as I understand it, they even said that the 2008 zoning didn't put them over capacity. Is that correct?
So I guess from my clarification, as far as the other costs, so you mentioned operational costs for school, so.
That's not an issue.
It's never.
It's only capital issues.
Even though a development adds 100 students, they're within the building capacity, but there's costs for more teachers, more supplies, more computers.
Capital improvement.
Any help there?
Capital improvement.
Yeah.
And the thing
For
about-
public school, facility improvements means construction of new primary or secondary public schools or expansion of existing primary or secondary schools to include buildings and structures, parking, but it does not include, where is it? Renovations or technology upgrades.
Specifically says that.
But I know we're ready to go. In regards to properties, I was excited when I saw their initial proffers with the section that include workforce housing and a lot of things. How is that in regards to proffers for today? Can they offer those?
They can do that because that is when you offer the type of housing that it's going to be, we can then address what we believe the impacts are going to be. I mean, that is just something that addresses an impact, just like if they proffer that it's going to be 65 and older, housing for the aged, we know that has different impacts. So they can certainly offer to do that. The problem is, if we went back to say, what does that proffer mean? I suspect we've got 7 people sitting here, 7 different answers for what is workforce housing.
Absolutely. That's the biggest challenge.
So, I mean, that is, Mrs. Ring has been very good about having proffers be redrafted, because we're not going to be here 10 years from now for somebody to say, what does that proffer mean?
Sure.
I have a quick question. So in the original proffers, they proffered over $13,000 in cash per unit, and then $632 per 1,000 square foot for the commercial. What was that tied to the fact that it was age-related and workforce?
No, that was because it was in 2008, and this happened in 2016 when the developers had enough of those proffers were based on no sound principle.
But they could come back and proffer that, and we could accept it
Not today, no.
No, because it's just cash.
to the county, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You can't do
You
that.
can't do that.
Has to go to something of,
It has to go to some impact and capital item typically.
So, do we know what the formula the schools use to come up with a number when we got 147 units and they only say we're gonna have, what, impact of 42, 43 kids?
43, so they have a study that was done that actually looked at how many kids were coming out of particular neighborhoods in the county, and they came up with what they call student generation rate. So, for example, Eagle Harbor has X number of single-family homes, and they have X many kids coming out of it. So the ratio of kids per house is, one single-family home in the northern end of the county is gonna, in general, produce
2.1
an
kids
average
or
of-
whatever, yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
that's how they come up with their student generation rate.
You know, my only concern with these types of public, issues and discussions and everything, a lot of people, I know we have all kinds of talent, skills, and abilities present in the audience and everything. And everybody says, well, I'm an engineer, I'm a professional engineer. And, we hear things that they say, well, that study is not appropriate, or they didn't take into account for this or that and what have you. And I'm saying we can't necessarily just believe everything they say. We have to kind of, believe in the credibility of the information that we've been given in an official capacity. And, just like you asked the question about the formula for schools, my wife works in the school system. I know that there is a formula that they use to compute all of those things. We don't necessarily know what those specifics are, but I don't think we need to engage, publicly with people who are making comments. That's their right to make those comments. We just have to take it as it is. Even with the TIAs and the FIAs that we get from, VDOT and those places, that's what they sent us. And he said, what we don't hear is that before those types of analyses come to us, they've been sent back to those organizations with questions. Yeah, it's just not a, that was one of the first things I had to learn, when I started on this planning commission. And there are some other analyses that go into that before, the review process. It's very important. And it can cause confusion. It can cause confusion. And I, you know, but it's time to go home. And so,
I'll second that.
yeah, you're balancing my time to the chair.
Mrs. Jones, if nothing else, I'll move on to the next item.
That's fine with me.
All right, Ms. Ring, Planning Director's Report.
So I don't really have a full planning director's report tonight. I just want to let you all know that I sent you an email earlier tonight with regard to the APA Virginia State Conference in Portsmouth this year at the Renaissance Hotel. It's being held July 20th through the 23rd. It's only $100 a piece for y'all to go. Of course, the county would cover the cost of that if you wish to attend. Just let Amanda and I know.
What's the date again?
It's July 20th through the 23rd. Of course, as luck would have it, we have a planning commission meeting that Tuesday, so you could go, but then you'd have to come back for planning, if we have anything.
So there's an email we have for it?
Yeah, I sent an email with a link, so y'all could take a look at the agenda and see if it's something you're interested in attending.
Thank you.
And just also let you know, the board approved the industrial and utility cabinet setback revisions to the zoning ordinance at their last meeting. Our sign ordinance survey closes May 1st. At that point, I'll get the results. I'll take a look at whatever suggested revisions, you know, the general comments have, as well as take a look at our sign ordinance and maybe bring some proposed revisions back to you all, as well as, I know we need to look at battery storage definitions and data center definitions, and I know Gloucester is working on an ordinance.
Speaking of batteries, we were gonna try to put together a tour of one of the new battery facilities, I think in New Kent or something, Richmond somewhere.
I know we were
Right
talking
there?
about that for
Yeah.
a retreat.
Retreat, yeah.
And then Dominion Energy has one already up and running, don't they?
I think they have, yeah, I think you're right.
There's one in Henrico, maybe? Yeah.
And so we will definitely come up with some draft revisions for you all to take a look at over the next couple of months. Just a reminder, May 13th is our next stakeholder working group, and we will take a look at some draft revisions to educate the aisle and talk about enhance the aisle, the last chapter, and hopefully come up with a draft comp plan that we could then put out for public review after that. So. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. Next goes to closed meeting. No items on that. And the last item, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.